Are we live?
Checking.
I think we're live.
Probably live, but I'm checking the. It says we're live, and if I hit play, yes, I can see the.
Alright.
Yeah, it looks like we're live.
Ah.
Don't screw it up.
Look, I don't have one of those, fancy fucking switchboards for recording and whatnot. I don't know. Audio recording is a dark art.
Yeah, man, I don't know how it works. You push the buttons and the sound goes in the computer. I didn't teach myself how to podcast in 2004 or 5, one of those years.
Anyway, you can start it up. So, Reddit's fucked.
Yeah, Reddit's fucked. Need berries to buy a ticket to do this unbelievable fetch quest. Yeah, Reddit's it's the shitification of Reddit, to borrow a phrase from Cory Doctorow.
I mean, he's right.
He's not wrong. Doesn't give me any berries. I guess I was supposed to explore over here when I was less strong. Have I been here? I think I've been here. This is where the desert's here. Okay. Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, Reddit is a poison that I become like. I can't have a Reddit account because I just get addicted to it. It's bad enough without a Reddit account. With a Reddit account, like, no, I have to comment on everything. Like, no,
people
it's
must know my opinions.
Yeah, exactly. It's shit for people like me who are very opinionated, but it is nice when I have this really obscure question and I Google it and like, oh, somebody on Reddit answered it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Maybe Stack Exchange will get that traffic instead.
Like, how do I troubleshoot this one really specific computer part in this particular build of Linux?
Yeah, exactly. My Broadcom drivers aren't working. Like, you're fucked. Damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically a whole bunch of the internet was built on free money, and the free money's going away now, so...
So they just constantly take out interest-free loans?
Yes.
And people thought this was a good idea.
Right, so so basically all of the social media... I talked a bit about this with Rob over on the... who's a player in the Saturday game, and he's like a computer programmer, and professionally, too.
Right.
So he knows a bit more about this sort of stuff than I do, and...
He didn't get booted in the great Facebook bootening or whatever.
No, I don't. I believe he works for something else. I don't know what company he works for, and I don't think I'd be yet privileged to divulge that.
No, I'm only saying he has a job.
Yeah, he
has. As opposed to the tens of thousands of programmers who no longer have a job.
Yeah, he has a job. So right. So basically, in the wake of the 2008 financial crash, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Fed, basically, the Federal Reserve, right, which is only tangentially related to the federal government, which is weird because America's stupid.
Yeah.
Because we can't have a government that can actually control its own money supply.
We used to have a central bank.
Yeah.
Sort of.
kind of sort of the U.S. has historically sort of gone back and forth on that until we have our current situation, which is this sort of weird public-private compromise.
Hmm.
In any case, right, in the wake of the 2008 financial crash, the Federal Reserve lowered interest rates to basically rock bottom, to,
Yep.
close to 0%, in order to stimulate the economy and try to get things going again. Now, of course, we all know that didn't really work all that well.
No. You have one lever you have one knob to twist to control an entire economy. No, there's just not enough variety in it.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, that's basically how it works, right? There's one knob, which
Yeah.
is the interest rates, and that's it, right? That's how that's how it can manage
Like,
the economy.
like I'm gonna go look for a hard. No, just
Yeah, and
turn
because
that
of
off.
because of
Dumbass.
just how complicated the economy is, lowering interest rates might encourage investment, or it might not.
Right.
And raising invest interest rates might discourage investment, or it might not. Um,
Yeah. They might just borrow lots of money, inflate their stock price, and not actually do anything with it.
yeah. So so basic. Speaking of that plan, right? So because interest rates are so rock bottom, a lot of the social media platforms, so YouTube, Twitter, Reddit, etc., basically
Mhm.
get their real start in investment in the wake of that, right? Where there's just tons of free money around, right? And because interest rates are so low, they don't have to make a reasonable promise to investors that like we're ever going to make any money, right?
Right.
Because it's free money. So the idea was, well, we'll we'll develop these platforms and we'll you know take over the internet and broaden our user base, and then we'll figure out how to monetize it later.
Yes. The infamous later.
Yeah,
Remind me about that because I want to talk about the space program
the
in the
infamous
infamous
later.
later.
Yes.
Yeah.
So so you end up with a lot of these platforms, right? Some are profitable, right? Facebook was very profitable, um, but a lot aren't, and a lot just don't, right? And this goes beyond purely social media to things like Uber, actually.
Hmm.
Uber, Airbnb, these other sorts of things, which are even quasi legal in a as well, right? U- Uber is constantly in these litigation battles about whether or not they're technically legally a taxi service, because that comes with certain requirements about how they operate.
Yeah, like
Uh,
Airbnb with hoteling,
same,
hotel,
yeah,
whatever
same
it
with
is,
Airbnb and hotels. Um,
hotellerie.
so so a lot of these platforms are developed and they just don't actually really make a whole lot of sense as businesses, right?
No.
Like it's like, oh, we'll sell ads. It's like, well, ad
Mm,
revenue on the internet is garbage.
yeah, it wasn't good when it was just pop-ups and shit. I don't know why it would be good here.
Yeah, so right, internet ads are very ineffective. Um, Marketing companies know this, so they're not willing to pay very much money. Um, uh, yeah, so ads don't do it. So then they go, okay, well, we're not going to only do ads, but we're going to do all this invasive shit to try to, um, you know, gather data on people and sell that somehow, right? And like basically the only reason why YouTube's around is because Google thinks it's worthwhile to gather data so they can have data sets to experiment on with their other business projects.
Yeah, mostly it's like SpaceX and Starlink. The like you have YouTube so that you need storage space so that you can Amazon Web Services can sell storage space on their server time,
Hmm.
which is where they make all their Amazon makes all its real money, and that makes you look good to investors.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah, so
okay.
you have one company buying servers from the other so you have one company that doesn't make any money buying services from another company that is making money, but only is making money because another company they also own is making a loss.
Right.
Um,
And the magic rationality of the market is stupid enough to fall for it every time. So
yeah. So so yeah, they they just don't make any sense as businesses, right? They they took over everything, right? Because they are operating at below
right,
cost, right?
the
They
network effect and below cost and all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
right. So like YouTube, right, the platform we're on right now, um, right? Like how do you right? YouTube has many problems with it, right? Um, Managing channels is a nightmare. Discoverability of videos is very shitty, and like the tags, like video tags exist, but you can't search by them. Um, which is
Right.
like even very basic search features are not implemented on YouTube, you know,
Yeah.
well over a decade into it being very popular.
But that just describes Google in general.
Yeah. So uh so yeah, so it has all those downsides, right? But it's also from a user perspective, right? It's also unlimited free video storage, right? And how can you
Oh,
compete
shut
with
up.
that, right?
Yeah.
How can you compete with unlimited free video storage that also retrieves very quickly? And the answer is you really can't, right? Um, and so these things have, so these unsustainable platforms, these, you know, at least unsustainable from a market perspective platforms have come to dominate the entirety of the internet because, you know, they're free and they offer services that would otherwise cost money if things were more reasonable. And so now that the interest rates are being hiked up in order to deal with inflation slash fuck over the working class, um, they're like, oh fuck, the free money pipe is gone off. We gotta try to, you know, the mystical later has finally come, and we gotta try to figure out some way of monetizing this shit.
Yeah.
And like, how do you do it, right? Like, the reality is that most of these platforms, in order to be like reasonable services, have to be paid platforms. Would have to be
Yeah.
paid platforms. Like
What?
you pay like $1 a month to have a Reddit account or something.
Which nobody would do.
Yeah, that's
It's not. It's hardly worth doing free.
yeah, it's hardly worth doing free, right? But the problem is that they don't provide a service which is worth paying money for, right? So
Like
instead,
I would theoretically like have a subscription to like the Washington Post, right?
mhm.
I for like $5 a month or something. That could be okay. But no, not fucking Reddit or Facebook.
Yeah, or Twitter, fucking Twitter Blue.
God, paying for Twitter,
Yeah,
maximum cringe.
yeah. Like, what? You got to be a real fucking idiot to pay for Twitter. Um,
Yeah. What genius thought of that idea?
hmm. Yeah. So instead of trying to rework their services into something that people will pay for because the advertising model just isn't working, right?
Right.
There's no way there's no way they're going to get into the black using the advertising model, because they've
No.
been doing it so far and it hasn't worked.
Right.
So they have to pivot to some new means of monetization, right? And instead of, being like, okay, right, we're going to turn this into a service worth paying for and then charge for it, right? Instead, right, it's just, well, let's go around sort of the edges of our business model and try to squeeze out everyone around us, right? So because things like, Reddit have, incredibly shitty user tools, third-party developers have come along and developed user tools to make things like Reddit more usable.
Yeah.
Like, basically all Reddit moderation relies on third-party tool assistance.
It's like, imagine if Bethesda banned mods
Yeah.
from its game.
And what Reddit has done, right, is basically they're like, well, right, so they've set a price for third-party developers, right, like API developers or whatever, right, but the price is absurd, right? It's like plainly, like, it's obviously absurd. So my intuition is that they basically won't just want to squeeze all of them out of existence entirely, and then replace them with services, with premium services you'd have to pay Reddit directly for.
Yeah, which would make sense, I guess.
The problem is that they don't have those services in existence at the moment.
Right.
So there's this huge transition period between, essentially removing all the stuff that makes Reddit usable and those things being reintroduced in a paid form. And there's no guarantee, of course, that the new paid versions by Reddit.com itself are going to be anywhere near as good as the ones that already exist. Because obviously, if Reddit hadn't fixed those issues already natively in the website, what reason do you have to believe that they'll fix it sometime in the future?
Right. I mean, people hate the new Reddit interface. I mean,
Yeah, because it's fucking.
Yeah, because it sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. It's unusable. Like,
I mean, even in the browser, it's unusable because you scroll for a while, the browser memory overloads, and you have to reboot the whole tab. So
yeah,
the point is, why should we believe Reddit will even do it, even if they've just promised to do it? It's not like they've been very good at the things they have done.
yeah. So of course, for the people in the future, of course, a bunch of the major subreddits have basically gone on strike.
Yeah.
They have privated themselves and are like, we are not going to help Reddit make money anymore until we have some, basic concessions that the platform works the way we do. Because, of course, right, that's also another thing about Reddit edit, right, which is that it relies on a ton of free labor in the form of volunteer moderation. And so I think right, and it's like, well, why should I volunteer to help moderate, a subreddit when the company is just fucking me over hard and making it impossible for me to do my volunteer labor? And the answer is there really isn't any reason. So basically, if you have any good sense in you, so long as Reddit pursues those policies, it's like, well, okay, we're gonna private the. I mean, at a certain point, it's just like, okay, delete the most popular subreddits.
Yeah. Which is what's happened.
I mean, I mean, at some point, I mean, at a certain point, right? Like, it's going to be a quick death or a slow death, right? And frankly, I don't think that the the corporate side will ever cave, right? Mostly because, if only as a matter of pride. So I think it's basically just, you know, at least the most that the moderators can do, honestly, at this point, is just to brick the website.
I'm gonna do some side missions because this is taking too long.
To screw over Reddit as hard as possible for screwing them over.
I think it'll just. I mean, so Twitter, nobody likes Twitter. Nobody liked Twitter when it wasn't owned by Elon Musk, and now people really don't like Twitter. So I think it's dying slower than people have complained that it is, but
Yeah.
hopefully it is dying. Um, and let's see, Tumblr. The only people left on Tumblr are weirdos, which is apparently how Tumblr likes it, so that's fine, I guess. Um, I don't know. I don't use Instagram or whatever. I don't really know if that's like a social kind of place. Um, who's left?
TikTok's probably going to get banned in the in the
Oh
form of
yeah,
Patriot Act 2.0.
TikTok's gonna get banned. Freaking Facebook. Nobody gives a shit about Facebook.
Facebook is slowly dying.
Yeah.
Um,
So I don't know. 4chan. You go back to 4chan. What do you do?
yeah, I mean,
No.
in my opinion, right, right, a more ideal internet would basically be non having nonprofit foundations maintain a system of open source programs and platforms for people to you know develop server space for and self manage communities and shit.
Yeah. I mean, that's just. I mean, my study of organization has led me to believe there is no reason to have for-profit anything.
Well, yes, that I I know the audience.
Yeah. Well,
But
I mean, even more broadly, right? Like, if you like, England does this in a few cases. The United Kingdom does. You can have a privately or a publicly owned enterprise, which is sort of technically for profit in that it generates profit, but that profit is just goes straight back into the operating fund of the general government.
mhm.
And so you can have ways of whatever small advantages in coordination or innovation a private enterprise might maybe give you in some circumstances, which I know the arguments against it, you can get with a publicly owned sort of nonprofit. So there's really no point to it. It's. I was thinking about this earlier, which is just that every piece of capitalist propaganda you hear is an attempt to prevent you from coming to that conclusion.
Yeah. Well, that guy has an explanation.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
no, and he's why I'm here. It's a side quest.
yeah. So, so yeah, what was that bit about free money in the space program?
Uh,
You told me to remind you of
and
that.
it was the infamous future.
Oh yeah, the
So
infamous future.
I was reading this op-ed from Space News from a couple of months ago, and I forget exactly who it was. I'm sure somebody could look it up and tell me. But the position the position was something. It was about. Maybe it wasn't from that long ago, but I think it was about privately owned space stations.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, this idea that so right now the International Space Station is going to be, as far as I know, and I just know this from reading the news, will they only have it funded to a certain point, and the
Yeah.
idea is after that it'll be deorbited or the Russians will take their half or whatever. I don't know the details, and then the United States will rely on one or more privately owned space stations of various sizes. There's one called Orbital
Uh,
Reef. which is a modular space station proposal. There's a number of hotel ideas from
I'm noticing a problem there, which
yeah,
is that these things are called proposals and ideas.
yes, yeah. Um, this is the bit this is where the future comes in, right? So first of all of the proposed space station ideas are based on publicly developed technologies. Like Bigelow Aerospace has flown a couple of uncrewed modules for demonstration purposes, which are based on the Transhab technology, which with inflatable habitat technology, which was developed through NASA. I don't know if it was developed by NASA, but certainly through a government grant. Um, Orbital reef, all the knowledge we've gained in construction of in space structures, all that's public money. And remember, it wasn't that long ago that the ISS was called a boondoggle, right? Oh, it's just a place for the space station, for the space shuttle to go. Well, now it's just a place for private enterprise to go, and suddenly it's great. Anyway, I think it's great for its own merits, but that's beside the point. So this op-ed rating, if it's the same one I'm thinking of, basically the point that I got was something like, we need to make sure that we fund this stuff now, and then in the future there will be, so that we are ready in the future for when there is a market. But we will, let's not talk about that now. That'll be for the future. And
Um,
I've got a
um,
whole list of articles as long as my
uh,
arm. I'm gathering data on different things. And the big question is there actually a market for a private space industry, right? Everybody, they say,
yeah,
oh, well, lower launch costs.
a market for who?
Exactly. We'll lower launch costs, and then that will trigger a market because supply side thinking, right? But I mean, you look at the really, like, okay, for small sats, it's kind of true, right? Technology is advanced. We can have satellites the size of my forearm, which can be launched, by the dozen for relatively low cost. That's sure, okay, that's a thing, right? But if you want to do anything big, like look at the James Webb Space Telescope, look at the International Space Station, look at going to the moon, right? The vast, like, 90% of the cost in the case of James Webb was the development, construction, and not even, I guess, the operation of the spacecraft itself. And then the rest of it is the launch vehicle, right? So even if the launch vehicle were free, you'd still be paying 90% of the cost,
Yeah.
right?
So
Where is that money coming from? And as far as I can tell, and I haven't read all the literature, but as far as I can tell, the answer is always NASA or DoD or USGS or NOAA or whatever, right? Some government agency is going to fund this because we've got to create a market. You got to create a market. This isn't the airlines, okay? What are you going to do with it?
yeah, like I mean, basically, as a company, basically no, almost no companies have any financial interest in outer space, right? In terms of services rendered.
Yeah, the
Um,
exceptions are telecoms. Other than that, that's been
I,
true since the 50s.
and really, if you're, and basically, only telecommunication companies have any interest in sending up stuff up to space.
Right.
And then that's basically just small satellites.
Yeah, especially now.
Uh,
Now it's a small sat race because Elon Musk did it.
but outside of that, they don't. There's no companies that that care, right? I mean, there's stuff you could like theoretically do, like say like putting power sats in orbit, but
Uh,
that would require developing power sats,
right.
which don't exist.
Yeah,
And
and the last proposal for them from the 70s during the oil crisis was, it would take years and billions of dollars to do it.
yeah,
And it's a good idea, and there's billions of dollars in the private sector that could be put to it. Uh, but the thought I had the other day was, if people genuinely thought that there was going to be a market for this stuff, that they could make profits off of, for a long period of time, considering the high upfront cost, then wouldn't you pay the high upfront cost? Like, if I thought for the investment of a few $1 billion, I could build some structure in space that would get me consistent profits for the next decade, on the order of billions of dollars. Then if I'm, ULA, or if I'm Apple, right? If I
hmm
wanted an Apple branded space station, would take all that
Espe-
money and do it. But
especially because there would be a huge first mover advantage.
exactly.
Because if you manage to develop the space infrastructure to get something going before anyone else does, then they're then basically all your competition has is a choice between either basically paying you for your infrastructure or paying out the nose to try to catch up.
Right.
So you'd probably get something close to a monopoly situation pretty quickly.
Right. And I mean, the argument you always get back is, oh, well, look at Ferdinand and Isabella with Christopher Columbus, or look at this or
Well,
that
that's well
government
that
funded thing.
well well that's not great arguments for a number of reasons.
No, it's not. But let's put aside all of the obvious like human rights abuses, right? I don't want to downplay
Right.
that. But just there's no humans on the moon, so let's put that aside. When I think we talked about this. When explorers got to the New World, they could breathe the air, they could eat the food, they could farm the land, they could chop down the trees for timber. It was relatively easy to do it. You have to put all that shit on the moon, and then you can go use it.
Yeah. So there's a couple reasons why earthly colonialism was more successful. One, you could deface the cost through plunder,
Right.
slaves, gold, etc., which is what basically all of the early Spanish explorers did. You know, Pizarro, sails off of the coast of Spain and comes back with a with a ship hold full of Incan gold
Right.
and silver. Right. So one, they could deface the cost. Two, it didn't require any new technological advancements to achieve. Sailing ships were already seaworthy sailing ships capable of making the journey already existed. Uh,
Right.
and three, right, you had very, very obvious economic things you could do in these colonial territories, largely in the form of plantations of various sorts, that keyed into the home economy very easily.
Right.
Um, and even then, right, most of these colonial expeditions were at least partially funded by, European states. There's a handful of exceptions, but the vast majority of the funding was, but not the vast majority, but a significant portion of the funding came from came from the crowns of Europe. And even then, right, lots of colonies just failed.
Right.
Right,
And
it took a couple of it, like on the sort of North American, what is now the U.S. East Coast, right? It took several attempts before, you know, one of the colonies, survived, and even then, it was this tiny anemic thing for decades.
speaking of gold, right? That's another argument you get back is, oh, we'll go and we'll fund the further progress through the mining of precious metals and such like that. And I'm not the first person to make this argument, but imagine if the Spanish ships had sailed to the New World and then found more gold than had ever or would ever exist on the Earth ever,
Yeah.
and brought it back. This gold is worthless now.
Yeah, I mean, even with the much more limited amount of gold they actually did bring back, they ended up crashing the gold market.
Yeah, exactly. And so that, like, one moderately sized metallic style asteroid, as I understand it, because it's so easy to access all that material, will produce as much mineral wealth that has ever been mined on the Earth. Like, we think we have a lot considering all the shit we've built, but it's not that much, really.
Well, yeah, actually, there's very little gold that's been processed. I think like all of
Right.
the gold on Earth, if you combine it into one spot, would be something like the size of the base of the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah. So, like, but yeah, I mean, in construction material terms, like, let's say you just wanted, iron to make buildings or something like that, or to make new structures in space.
Hmm.
It's great for, like, in terms of directly converting an asteroid into a usable structure. It's fantastic, right?
Yeah,
We can hardly ask for, like, we live in an amazing solar system for that, right?
yeah,
For a lot of reasons. Um, But in terms of like, oh, we're going to use it to fund it, no, you're not. The very first time anybody does it, they will immediately crash the whole economy. Like, oh, they'll be a trillionaire. No, all of their stock in that company will be worthless
Yeah,
because what are you gonna
they
get out of it?
they did capitalism too good, and now they're broke.
Right. So this is why I don't believe capitalism can extend very far into space.
Yeah, so
It just the economics of massive overabundance would destroy it.
yeah, so I mean, like it would be like, of course, right? Asteroids are much more mineral rich because the Earth forming and cooling, lots of the heavy materials sunk.
Right.
Uh, so the crust is actually pretty poor in, metals.
Yep.
Uh, right, but like, it would be like you can do it, right, but you need like a greater economic plan in order to make it all work together, because otherwise you're just going to crash the market.
I mean, if you really wanted to support, an oligopoly on a space-based system, you would basically have to say we're going to do all the things that essentially planned economy would do, and then just give the keys to wealth and power to a select group of people.
Right, because
You just have to do it on purpose. It wouldn't be like an economic thing that just emerged.
let's just say like iron and steel, right, if you brought that in, right, you'd have to, well, firstly there's a processing question of how much processing and how, if you needed to like in what way you need to process it, because
Mhm.
that's actually a very expensive part of the whole ordeal.
Yeah.
So if you just brought in like, so if it's just like iron ore, right, then right, you could very quickly overstretch your smelting capacity. So your steel mills, working 24/7 just won't be able to, accommodate that. And then you have to actually then find some economical use for the output. Uh, which, I mean, I can imagine some things, but given the fact that the market as is pretty anemic on industrial goods.
Yeah. Just.
There's a
I
lack
mean,
of there's already a lack of effective demand for our current industrial capacity.
yeah. I think Aaron Benanav makes that. Is that his name? Aaron Benanav. Anyway, Benanav. I think he makes that point exactly, which is, after World War II, rapid industrialization was sold to the, developing world as a way of rapidly building wealth and cutting out the communists. Um, and that's the result. So it's just insane, right? You'd have to go to you, the only other thing you could do is open a market in space by like establishing a space colony, which is a huge undertaking in and of itself, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then selling to them, but you're just going to turn them into colonialism too, right? I mean, they're just going to be, oh, well, we're exploited and we're up here at the top of the gravity well. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
you can't.
imagine if the the early American colonies, like, okay, we're going to exploit you and we're going to give you all of our nuclear weapons. What?
Yeah, not a great idea, right?
No.
Right. The issue is that you need fairly highly educated and skilled workers up there, anyways, and then you're giving them a bunch of super dangerous and expensive equipment and rockets and shit.
Right. And all they got to do is drop a rock.
Yeah, and it's
They
like,
hardly have
well,
to do anything.
all we really got to do is strap a rocket to an asteroid, and the city of whoever we don't like disappears. The hometown of whoever makes us upset goes away.
That's why
Uh,
the economics of the Expanse series don't really make any sense.
yeah.
I mean, it would never have got that far. I was gonna do. Nope. Shit. I fucked it up. Oh, I did it anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the D-pad button I gotta press?
So like within right? With a lack of effective demand for our current industrial goods, I don't see how massively increasing the amount of industrial goods we produce would work.
No, it's silly.
Um, Now, of course, right, we could, have an alternate economic system where we can just command there be, you know, need for industrial goods.
Yeah. If we said we want to, have a centrally planned economy, we're going to build a presence in space for a number of various reasons, it would work very well, actually.
Yeah, and then we can just have, like, buildings made entirely of steel.
Yeah. I mean, take an asteroid, chop it up into little bits, move those bits into Earth orbit, and then build stuff like there.
Yeah.
Easy. It just
And,
can't be done with, well, we're going to do it with the market. It can't be done. That's my
yeah.
opinion.
Of course, there's also all sorts of fissile materials you could get that would be really,
Oh God,
really worthwhile to get.
if we could mine and refine fissile materials from asteroids, I mean, there's an XKCD comic about it. You just build an Orion, pusher plate system, and then fly wherever the hell you want. It'd be
Yeah.
amazing.
Then you're right. Well, that would create, the industrial, baseline you need to create spaceships capable of cruising around the solar system within an acceptable time frame.
Yeah. Ooh, shit. Oh, God damn it. She sucks my energy. She did say she would do that. I don't think I have any more of those. I have one. Actually, I think I'm gonna have her do it. And then he can do that. Yay! All right, now what do I do? Hold on. How much is his? He needs three. Three, yeah. You. Yeah, that's fine.
Then hit her with V, and then ice coffin her.
Yep. It's three, so I can do. I can do five. It's fine. Nope. Okay. And yeah, cup. Yeah, cup needs it. And frigid coffin.
This little kitty likes to get brushed.
Yeah. Suck it. Um, what do I want to do here? I hit her. Do I have any items? That's what I was crunchy. Crunchy leaf. Yeah. And hmm. 9 HP. Don't need a hard seed. Ooh. Um, who wants to get an extra turn next turn?
Who does the most baseline damage?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Probably Kabu.
Yeah, I guess Kabu. I don't think freezing her is going to do anything, so I'm just going to hit her.
You could do nothing, and she then spends her turn
Oh,
just
that's
getting
true.
unfrozen.
I can do nothing. Oh, nope.
Yeah, there you
She's
go.
just. Oh, okay. She didn't attack.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So
Let's go
then
attack.
double attack with
Yeah.
Kabu.
Oh, oh,
Oh,
that was
you just
easy,
crushed
I
that
guess.
shit.
Yeah, it's just amazing at this game.
Top gamer moments.
I like her parasol attack. I guess that was a he. I liked his parasol attack. These bugs talk a lot. Better than, but I need berries.
Kabu's like, I have no need for berries, and you're like, you fucking idiot. We need them to buy metals so we can save the world or something.
I need them to buy a boat ticket so I can complete a side quest. I don't remember what the it's no. So I can complete the fetch quest series that gets Vi back in with her sister.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I got into a debate with someone on the internet about the viability of using uh, private militaries to defend a state or a society. Um,
Oh,
a libertarian sort.
yeah, I figured.
Uh,
I'm sure that was intellectually and emotionally rewarding for
I
you.
I mean there's an interesting history to why mercenaries were used by early European states, and why that sort of fell out of favor. Do you want me to enlighten you with the history of the development of the state?
Sure.
Right. So basically, so so there's a couple reasons why. Right. So you're a medieval lord, right? And you need to go to war with somebody, right?
Mhm.
For whatever reason. Um, they're the slightly wrong kind of Christian for or whatever.
Yes.
Um, there there are a couple reasons why you hire mercenaries. One is that you lack. One is that you lack an ability to scale up your existing military forces, and thus you pay a premium to expand them, just in raw numbers. Two, you have an absence in certain specialty roles uh, that you don't have on hand. And three is that you lack a native industry being able to like build military goods to train militaries in the first place. And those are sort of your more classical reasons. In the more modern times, you also have. Um, oh yeah, no. There's also the this is also applies, which is that yeah, they're very useful when you consider your native population to be politically unreliable. right? So it's like, well, if I give my peasants a bunch of weapons, they're just gonna kill me. Uh, Whereas, if you hire mercenaries, they just care about money, so, you know, they're going to be slightly less inclined to just murder me outright. And of course, if mercenaries die, nobody cares, and uh, the much more modern use for mercenaries is plausible deniability, right? You have some unsavory thing you want to do. Uh, so, you hire mercenaries to do it, so you can be like, well, they're just a bunch of wild, rascally guys.
Bunch of bros
Yeah. So,
hanging out.
so as European states developed, right, um, mercenaries became outmoded as a means of, building your armies. So partially it had to do with the changes in technology, right? So a pre gunpowder army, right? You don't actually have a lot of logistics needs. Uh, your armies mostly live off of the land, and you bring armors and weaponsmiths and whatnot along with the military force to maintain their equipment and such. So there's a very short logistics tail. But as the logistics tail increases in length, right, a private force can't, like, you know, both own and operate, the actual fighting force and also afford, maintain a bunch of factories in this whole, chain of production to keep them equipped. Oh, also, that was another really fucked up thing about mercenary forces in sort of early modern Europe, late medieval, early modern Europe, which was that uh, if you joined a mercenary company, so you were paid, but you had to pay for all of your own equipment, and you also had to pay for all of the camp services.
I see.
So you had to pay for your own rations. If you had something broken, you had to pay the if something if yours broke, you had to pay the camp craftsman to get it fixed. The whole thing down the line, right? Which is like, well, that's super. Well, that's a way to just like, oh yeah, you're paying all this money, and then you just lose it immediately, paying for all the equipment you need to do to do your job.
Yep. Them's the breaks. Oh, this is what crystal berries are for, huh?
So technology. So that means that mercenary forces really can't be much more than like light infantry. And if you look at like modern infantry forces, mercenary forces, they're basically all light infantry. Uh, the next is actually the rise of conscription, right? Uh, cons- Conscription and the development of the administrative capacities of the state meant that their militaries could much, much more easily, rapidly scale up in size. So, a country like, Finland, which has, a pretty small military, can, if need be, mobilize its reserves and turn into into like the largest army in Europe pretty within a couple weeks. Um, and this combined with some other stuff means that mercenary forces are just sort of inadequate as a main fighting force, and the only reason why modern states use them is because either they're looking for plausible deniability or there are serious weaknesses within the state. So basically, the state doesn't function right. which is why mercenaries are only used by are only used in large numbers by like dysfunctional African governments and shit. Anyway, that was a vague rambling about that. The point is that privatizing national defense is not going to be effective for
No.
a variety of reasons.
Central planning is more and more possible as time goes on, and has more and more advantages over, other kinds of economic systems.
Mm-hmm.
And that's applicable to the military as well.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck off.
Oh, Crunchy Leaf.
Crunchy leaf?
Yeah, he dropped it to the right.
Oh. Ooh. Let's see. No. That's cool, though.
It's a cool idea, but
Fuck you. Yep. All that, and I think I actually have fewer berries so that I just... It's... Ugh. Shut up. I'm just wandering around now.
I'm gonna refill my drink and get myself some snackage.
Oh, okay, this is the guy.
1 minute.
There's not. Is this? Who is this? What am I here for? What's this say? Pass the statement as exclusive in the crease. Oh, is this the way okay, this maybe is the way I came originally to get there. And I'm just going backwards for no apparent reason. Come on. Come on. There we go. Nope, can't jump. I'm gonna follow him. Silly. Oh. Somebody needed some of those. Did that unlock the place where I was just about to go? This game doesn't have a map, does it? It'd be nice if it did. Especially if you're gonna go wandering around all sorts of places. A map with, like, an icon for all the thousands of fetch quests I've picked up so far. Because I don't remember who half these people are when they talk. The old bug that lives nearby. Is there an old bug that lives nearby that I should talk to? Are you here? Ooh. Oh, you're a person. What is it you're looking for? Chuck. He wants a hearty breakfast. I need to get a hearty breakfast.
I am back.
Where can I buy a hearty breakfast?
I have no idea. Denny's?
I mean, I could buy something at Denny's.
A grand slamwich?
A moon's over my hammy. I haven't been to Denny's in a long time.
Nah.
You know, I don't want to say Denny's is terrible, but it was the last time I went there 10 years ago. So, it's God, that's terrifying. I think if I get I'm just randomly doing shit now. I think if I get a hearty breakfast for him.
I mean, admittedly, a lot of those diner places are kind of just shitty. Unfortunately, in the U.S. But you know, at least places like Waffle House make the shittiness part of the, part of the charm.
Yeah. The Waffle House Economic Index or whatever it is.
Yeah, you go, you get in your finest suit, you drive over to the Waffle House, someone missing half their teeth, takes your order, hobos are knife fighting out in the parking lot, the atmosphere is perfect.
Last time I went to a Waffle House was right after I saw the movie 300. My friends and I went to the movie 300, and then when we were done, we were like, we're hungry, let's go to Waffle House. So we did, but I don't remember anything about it. God, cunt. There we go.
There's this Key and Peele's skit, or like series of skit. It's where the joke is it's this guy who doesn't understand what fancy things are really, and so he treats things that are very mundane as though they're extremely fancy, like a continental breakfast at a hotel.
Oh yeah.
He's like, oh, very cultured. They really needed to do one of those skits, but like a Waffle House.
If you had a visitor from a foreign land who said, take me to like a restaurant that is quintessentially American, where would you take them?
McDonald's.
I mean, they've got McDonald's, though. There's McDonald's everywhere.
It's quintessentially American.
Yeah, but like, more than McDonald's.
So, American in a better way. Okay.
Yeah, I guess a more authentic way.
I don't know, America's restaurants just generally kind of suck.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to answer my own question and I can't think of one. I mean, there's a few like local places I would take them, but then there's local places.
I mean, there's if I were just taking them to like a good like restaurant that was reasonably affordable, there's like 2 or 3 places that are near me. They're like local chains that are pretty good. Of course, I don't make enough money to go to like nice, fancy, proper restaurants.
Yeah, I don't know.
God, when was the last time I went to a sit-down restaurant?
Maybe I'd take him to an Outback Steakhouse.
I think it's been like 3 years since before. I think it was like before the COVID started that was the last time I went to like a proper sit-down restaurant.
Yeah, no, I go sometimes to such places. Then I go to the movies, so, and bowling.
I almost never go to the movies.
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend I go to the movies with. We're movie people, I guess. But I'm increasingly less inclined to do it. Like, and I saw the trailer for the new Barbie movie, and originally when I saw like the production shots, I was like, I'm excited about this because it's going to be satirical and fantastic. But then I saw the trailer, and I'm like, I think this is going to be way lamer than I thought it was. It's going to be your standard Hollywood. I don't know. Like, the big thing, like, I didn't like about the trailer, was, like, the scene towards the end of the trailer where Ken is like, "Can I talk to a doctor?" And he's talking to a woman, and she's like, "I am a doctor," and he's like, "Haha," right? That kind of thing. I'm
Hmm.
like, no, look, Ken dates Barbie, who does everything, right?
Yeah.
She's an astronaut, physicist, doctor, ballerina, right?
Hmm.
He should be all about the yes. No, of course you can. But like I'm really like how can you be like a good joke would have been how can you be a doctor? I don't see you doing something that Barbie can also do, right? Like oh or like oh you're a doctor. How many times have you been to the moon, right? Like that would be like more on brand, I
Hmm.
think. But it's not really. I don't know. It just feels mean spirited. I don't think I'm going to enjoy that movie, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I haven't, I've been wrong about movies based on their advertising before, so maybe it's just entirely a question of bad advertising. All right, so I don't know how to
Aren't
cross these things.
aren't the Barbie movie and the Oppenheimer movie going to release on like the same day or something?
Yes, apparently that's why they're combining all the. It's like when Doom and Animal Crossing released on the same day. Okay, I do want to see Oppenheimer because I like Christopher Nolan and I'm interested in J. Robert Oppenheimer.
I still love, I like the memes around that everything. Honestly,
Yeah,
they lied to me. I never truly knew what a Mega Bomb Jap Slayer 9000 was truly about.
yeah. I mean, they're fun. It's ahistorical, but yeah,
I mean,
it's funny to contemplate. I mean, so there's this movie. I think it's Fat Man and Little Boy with Paul Newman. I forget. And it's about that. It's like
I
it's
know
about the
the.
development of the bomb, and just for people who don't know, it's about the development of the bomb, and it's particularly about how do you get an avowed, pacifist, I guess, like J. Robert Oppenheimer, to build the most destructive weapon ever. Um, and it goes through God, what's his? I can't remember his like the guy who built the Pentagon. I can never remember his name, and I should because he's amazing. It just goes through like the process and how he like appealed to it. And what's great about it, right at the very end, right? Because the whole movie has been sort of about this process of getting these scientists who, at one point write a letter talking about how they should never use the device they're building, um, because of how terrible it would be. Uh, at the end, they're having a big parade for Oppenheimer and all the others. Hey, we won the war, and then it just cuts over to a car where Paul Newman is sitting, and he's just watching, and nobody's acknowledging him, and that's brilliant.
Mhm.
And that's a really good movie. So, but I'm interested in seeing how Christopher Nolan approaches it because there's some really interesting stuff about that period of time. Like Einstein, who wrote the letter to FDR saying they needed to develop a nuclear weapon or the Nazis would first, um, had to be coerced into doing it basically or pressured anyway. And so it's interesting. That kind of stuff is really interesting.
I mean, there's also the sort of overlooked fact as well that a number of the scientists on the Manhattan Project ended up purposely leaking their nuclear designs to the Soviets in an attempt to prevent World War III.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Morality's hard, man. I don't claim to have a lockdown on what people ought to do.
Because the concern was that if the U.S. alone had the nukes, then the U.S. would just go nuke happy and just fucking bomb everyone who vaguely opposed them.
Hmm.
Which, is probably true.
There would certainly be an element that advocated for that. Yeah, I don't know whether it actually would have happened, but I mean, so the more I learn about like the great conspiracies, I guess you could call them, the great things that have been hidden from the public, is that at least nominally, what people in power seem to genuinely worry about is what will the public think. Like we can't let this get out because the public will, lambast us for it. Blah blah blah. So I don't know. I would like to hope that cooler heads would have prevailed, but who knows?
Also, it's reminded a bunch about my political science paper I wrote for my game theory class,
Mhm.
arguing that a nuclear war was much more likely to happen by accident than anyone intentionally wanting to do so.
Yeah. I mean, it almost happened a couple of times.
Because the
Cat.
because the U.S. had terrible safety standards when it came to handling nuclear weapons.
I have to appease my cat. Hold on. You know how it goes. Like that time we almost bombed North Carolina, I think it was.
Yeah, so the issue, right, of course, is that nuclear weapons aren't just put in a bunker somewhere,
No.
right? But they're constantly being handled and loaded and unloaded off of strategic bombers, submarines, all sorts of places and shit. And each one of those handlings, of course, has an opportunity for an accident or some sort of failure. And when you're handling thousands of bombs, many thousands of times, right? It's a matter of time before something goes wrong somewhere.
Yeah, risk assessment at that level is complicated. I couldn't even begin to imagine what kinds of um,
And you had,
what kinds of things you'd consider for that.
which was also exacerbated by the fact that the early designs for the warheads were really not very safe, right?
Mm.
Like, some of them could accidentally trigger if there was too much static electricity in the air. Like, if there was a big thunderstorm, the static electricity could build up in the circuits and cause it to switch.
If I turn another book. Yeah, I have no idea about such things. Oh, sad child with the hat.
It's also why reducing the raw number of nuclear warheads in active service actually does make us safer, even if the number of nuclear warheads is still enough to cause a nuclear winter.
Makes sense. Where did you drop it? Golden Festival. Sorry. I'm sure there's a more efficient way to get around, but I don't have a map. At least not that I've found. I'm sure there is one.
Also, I remember like a couple days ago, or maybe it was a week ago now, that there was some new news bit about some new major leak about UFOs.
Jeez, it says map on it. Ooh, God, wow, this game's bigger than I thought it was. Yeah, I don't know. The evidence for that seems to be incredibly thin.
My source, trust me, bro.
That basically seems to be it. Like a whole bunch of people came out and said, "I totally have knowledge of this thing." Like, so there was somebody on Reddit. I don't remember, some commenter.
Rest in peace.
Said, yeah, Reddit in peace. Was apparently their personal conspiracy theory was something along the lines of an alien craft crashed sometime in probably the 40s, I guess. The United States government took components from that craft, built basically a super weapon, and then illegal rogue elements within the government are using that weapon to shoot down other aliens that come by and stealing their stuff. And then another alien is going to come and blow us all up because we're a threat to the galaxy. And I'm like, A, That's the plot of The Day the Earth Stood Still, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Um, so good job. B, why do these need to be illegal rogue elements? Like, if that was a thing, like, what? How do you fire an alien super weapon without anybody's noticing? Right? It's
Yeah.
just very silly. It's
I
all
mean,
very silly.
so you run into right. So what are your classic like mystery novel, you know, pillars, right? Motivate, right? Means, opportunity, and motivation.
Right.
Does the perp, have the means to do it? Did they have the opportunity to do it? And do they have the motivation to do it? And basically, that sort of and UFO theories basically fall apart on all three bases,
Right.
right? We don't really have the right. Right. So you're a space guy.
Oh.
How easy is it to hide a spaceship?
One that's turned on.
Yes.
Very. I mean, it depends on where it is, I guess. Like, I mean, anything that's active in space is going to need to bleed heat somehow. Um,
Yeah.
and like things that are cold, that are far away, that are only warmed by the sun, we can see.
Yeah.
Uh, I imagine it'd be fairly difficult, especially if you tried to hit it with a weapon.
Yeah. So, basic, right. Basically, any active spaceship would be very, very hot, and it would be a very, very hot object
Yeah.
against a very cold background.
Yeah, like the background, was it space? It in general is like almost perfectly cold. I forget exactly. Like in the shadow of the moon, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I think space is like on the order of a few Kelvin. The very far land from the right. Okay. Okay. Have fun, little dude. Hope you
Moreover,
find a
you run
hat.
into the problem of what's the motivation for hiding it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're aliens, right, why hide? Like, what the fuck are the Earthlings gonna do?
Yeah. How do you come like the alternative explanation that people are putting forward is like multiple alien spacecraft make it the multiple light years from wherever they are to here, and then just crash into a mountain. Like that just keeps happening over and over again. And like I've met people who like are very intelligent and very good at their job, and like about like one thing are just nuts.
Yeah, I mean, like, on a certain right. So, like, here's the thing, right? We would be easy marks for like aliens, right? Like, if aliens were real, like, fucking, aliens, alien UFO, you know, plops itself on your front yard, right? Flying saucer, whatever, right? Plops itself on your front yard. I'm pretty sure you're like the rest of your life is going to be committed to learning everything about these aliens, right?
Oh my god, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Just everything.
Their
How did you
language, their
survive the distance
history,
here?
their technology.
It's like I need propulsion to get places, and I need medical technology to survive the getting of places, and it's just so much. Sorry.
Yeah, so I would love for that to be true, but the problem is the evidence just isn't there, right? Um, right, sightings of UFOs only start once the Cold War kicks into action, and then the descriptions of various aliens seem to come very shockingly from to be shockingly similar to various pieces of fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Like the description of little gray men with big black eyes actually comes pretty much straight from H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds.
Yeah, and that apparently that is the kind of alien we are dealing with in these new UFO things, is the gray type.
Yeah, and of course, flying saucers were a thing in science fiction, decades before
Mm-hmm.
UFO sightings became a big thing, right? So basically, we see flying saucers in this particular description of alien already being a thing in fiction, like a decade or more prior to anyone thinking, "Oh, UFOs are a real thing."
Right.
Very interesting. Personally, right? So my personal conspiracy theory actually is that belief in UFOs was perpetuated by the U.S. government as a means of covering up um, uh,
experimental like black budget spacecraft
well, not spacecraft, but just
or
experimental
aircraft.
aircraft.
Sorry, I'm also playing the game. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, pretty much straight from. I mean, as far as I'm aware, like for the most part, whenever like most UFOs are like the planet Venus, or like an airplane that's far away, and for all the other ones, they're like, oh, it does this weird thing, like it moves weird, and people are like, nah, it's clearly just like a government drone that they're working on or whatever.
Yeah.
So if that's the goal, I'm not sure it worked, but I guess it's possible.
I mean, I know that there's one documented case where that was basically what was going on, right? There was this retired Air Force guy who lived near an airbase, right? And he saw strange lights and movements in the sky, which were testing of experimental spy planes.
Mm-hmm.
And he told one of his buddies in that was still active duty about this, right? Which and this active duty guy, knew that it was an experimental flight. So that creates a intelligence problem where, like, well, he can't just say, well, no, that didn't happen, right? Can't go in
Mm.
flat denial because obviously he saw it. And he can't explain, right, that, like, oh, we're doing testing because that's a breach of secrecy. So he's like, no, that is weird. Like, maybe it's like aliens or something, right?
Mm.
And basically, they just kept feeding him this shit until he basically just went fucking crazy.
That's yeah, I don't know. I would have just said I have no idea what that is, man, and then just got on with my day.
I don't know. It's the old early Cold War. They were doing MK Ultra shit and whatnot.
That's true.
And also, they spent way, way too much money trying to find out if, trying to find out, trying to create psychics and shit.
Walk to the left a lot and got here. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like anything is worth scientific investigation as long as you follow proper ethical protocols.
I mean, yeah. So I don't think it was a bad idea to look into, like, as a concept,
Yeah.
right? But they kind of went at it for a bit too long and spent too much money on it.
Yeah, that might be true.
I think it wasn't even until like I think it was only up until I think it was really like actually only starting in the 1990s that officials finally gave up fully on the idea of trying to discover psychic powers.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm thinking like, should there be like an agency devoted to the discovery of psychic powers? Like maybe. It'd be cool.
Well, the problem is
But
that nobody's been able to, even
yeah,
produce very minor psychic abilities,
yeah,
right?
I don't know what mechanism it like. You would need a really strong theoretical background in like to support it before you even really began knowing what you were investigating,
Yeah.
mechanically speaking. And I just don't know if that
Uh,
is
I mean, one
feasible.
there's right the causal question of like how would psychic powers even work? Um, like from like a basic physical standpoint, but like you could even be like, well, maybe people have something that we describe as psychic powers that's still pretty dope and useful somehow, right? But they can't even produce that. So,
Wait, a hat! I found the hat! Hooray! Like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm disappointed that magic isn't real, and sometimes I'm like, but you say that while, talking on the internet and playing a video game at the same time. And it's just, magic is kind of what you make of it, right?
yeah.
I gotta go this way. I can't shoot fireballs from my hands and I'm pissed, but other than that, I mean, I do have a piece of glass that can talk to other pieces of glass. But just because I understand mechanics of how, like, if magic were real, I think you told me once, like, I would just be like, oh, yes, now I understand how the fireball spell matrix works, and then I get bored again. So,
Yeah.
it's the not understanding that is interesting. And
I
then
mean,
you,
the thing is right. So like a lot of our popular conceptions of our, fantasy fiction portrayals of magic is actually heavily influenced by things like the writings of Jack Vance and the Dying Earth novels.
that makes sense.
Right, and right, so there's an analogy, right? We could have engineering predates science, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, where people discovered heuristics which were functional to be able to overcome practical problems before they really understood the scientific backing of it.
Yeah. Because you just have to test it against the universe,
Yeah,
and you'll figure it out.
you know, if you build an arch with a certain ratio of, structural materials, right, it will stand up. Why? Who knows? But it does.
Yeah, chemistry particularly was interesting. The
Right.
history of chemistry.
And in the Dying Earth, right, in the Dying Earth setting, that's basically how magic works, right? Wizards are basically engineers, right? They have acquired a wide variety of different tricks and heuristics and whatnot to do a bunch of cool things, but they don't really understand how or why they work.
I sell metals I don't need anymore.
So the mystery of magic right there is in that, right? It's that they don't necessarily really understand how the things they do function in a practical way, which is also a really good writing way of getting around actually having to explain how your magic system works.
Yeah. So that happens in Doctor Stone, sort of. Right, he comes across the village of people who have been around for the last few thousand years, and one of them is Chrome, and he's considered sort of a weirdo. He goes around and he gathers rocks and he bangs them together and he sees what happens. And he's like, I've discovered, I'm a wizard. I've discovered magic. And he like throws some rocket powder into a fire and the fire changes color. And Senku, the main character, who is like, he's like, he's just a walking scientific encyclopedia in the way of that show where like people are just like hyper exaggeratedly skillful.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, that's this reaction for this thing. And I'm like, yep, that's how that would go.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
So
What am I doing? I think there's a badge seller out at. Is it Defiant Root? Yeah, Defiant Root. Look here. Not selling bad. No, these are just items. Where's the badge seller? Or the metal seller? Is he here? Or is there only one outside the other place?
I don't remember. So
Wait. I think it might be over here.
I've been playing a lot of Caves of Cud lately.
I've heard that's a good game.
Yeah.
It's one of those weird, hyper detailed, procedurally generated games, isn't it?
Yes.
Alright, I think I know where I gotta go now. Okay, is that the end of that story?
Yeah. No. No, I mean, it's
It's like, yeah, we're just done.
yeah.
That's it. No more.
We're just done. We're just silent for the rest of the stream. That's the end of it. Yeah. So I've been
Let's
playing.
be honest. The stream is an excuse
Yeah.
to have something in the background.
Yeah. While I rant at you about stuff, while you try to participate in the conversation while trying to play video games simultaneously.
Yeah, no, I'm not good at it. And these are also items. I'm sure there's a place I can buy medals.
Low skill. Um, low skill let's
Whatever.
player.
Multitasking isn't real. You can't. It's not a thing. You can't actually multitask.
I mean, I know that, but lots of people don't.
Yeah.
Which is how we get accidents at work.
Yeah. Just focus on one thing at a time. As they say in the military, slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Yeah.
That's right. It's faster than trying to rush it and fucking up and having to do it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
So
for my ranting thing, like that's so I've been, as far as I can tell, and I will write a book about all this one day, I'm sure. As far as I can tell, the only way that SpaceX has been able to charge relatively low prices for their launches, such as they are, right, is, putting aside any options of like accounting shenanigans or like this putting costs in different buckets to hide how much things cost, is by overworking their employees.
mm-hmm.
And I just can't. That just can't be right.
I mean,
just
it reflects in the it reflects in the quality of the products that Musk's corporations put out, right? Like you look at Tesla, right? They
Yeah.
they way overwork their staff. They have way more accidents at their factories compared to any other car manufacturer. And the product quality of their vehicles is both very inconsistent and also poor.
Yeah, all I can think about for like SpaceX is, I don't know. I guess NASA is keeping an eye on them. I hope so.
Well, there are certain things where you're only going to be able to. There are certain aspects of that, right? You're only going to be able to learn if you got a chance to like look at one of their rockets up close.
Yeah.
Where it's
Like I wonder.
where if you like get a SpaceX rocket up close and you look at it, and it's like, well, that's a really cheap weld.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully they have people doing risk assessment to understand that kind of thing. I hope somebody does anyway. I don't know. There's videos. The Common Sense Skeptic did a couple of videos on the Starship launch back in April and its various failures, and it's worth a watch. And it does make me wonder about I don't know, right? Like that's supposed to be the human landing system, and it just doesn't look good. I'm not like Artemis 3, which is supposed to land on the moon, is supposed to happen in like 2025, late 2025, and
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
no, like they just now put out an RFP or something for like new lander proposals
Hmm.
or something like that. And they did something a couple of years ago, and now they're doing something else about like additional landing proposals. And I don't know. It's hard to buy into the narrative of private space, new space is so efficient, and fast when stuff like this happens.
Hmm.
And like you look at the SLS and it got delayed and got delayed and got delayed and oh the SLS is so terrible and then they launched it and it worked the first time.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. So, um, yeah, as I was saying, playing Case of Cud, um, playing it on, not playing it on, permadeath mode because I am a huge wimp that doesn't want to spend 10 hours on a character to just lose it.
right.
Um, once I'm, a lot better at the game, maybe we'll look. I'll,
Games are supposed to be fun.
yeah, I'll do that, right? But there's enough, content there that I want a character to like survive through to see the later dungeons and shit.
Yeah. You want to play the game and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, unfortunately, they
It's
also
fine.
included there's also pre-built characters and that are pretty well done and survivable and reasonably optimized.
Neat. What was I doing? Oh, you need 3 clear waters? Where can I get clear water? I'm sure I walked past it 1,000 times. I don't know where anything is.
Yeah, but playing Case of Cud is it's fun. My character is one of the presets. Truekin, heavy armor, sword and board, along with long rifles.
I don't play that game, so none of that means anything to me.
So basically, you can be a mutated human or a Truekin, right? So Truekin means you're not mutated, but
Cool.
of course, mutants get access to all kinds of wacky powers. Um, Truekin have better sort of all rounders, right? Better baseline stats, more skills points per level, that sort of thing. So mine is,
Mhm.
and also Truekin can use cybernetics, which gets pretty wild in the late game. So I hear. Um, the uh, there's a different sort of kinds of weapons and kinds of armor you can specialize in. Uh, so you can go. So you have a armor value and a dodge value. So uh, the dodge value works like armor class in D&D, and the armor value works like damage reduction in D&D. That makes sense.
Okay.
Uh, so heavy armor, you get hit a lot, but you absorb the hits.
Get my way.
And you can also specialize in different kinds. And generally, you want to specialize in one kind of ranged weapon and one kind of melee weapon.
All right.
So your range weapons options are generally going to be long arms, uh, like rifles and shit, bows, or short arms, which are pistols and shit, which have their various upsides and downsides. And then in melee, you have a choice between long blades, short blades, axes, and cudgels.
I really need to be able to sell metals. Oh, right.
So, and there's lots of sort of crazy builds you can do. But I'm specialized in long blades and long rifles. Long arms, so rifles mostly.
Long arms.
So my character currently has a carbide longsword and a sniper rifle as his weapons, along with a nice little stash of thermal grenades.
Thermal grenade. Yeah. So your sniper katana combo, huh?
Yes, with heavy armor.
Right.
And the general setting of Caves of Cud, right, is the sort of distant, like post apocalyptic Earth, right?
Right.
So there's just this layer cake of ruin, uh, and the rise and fall of various technological ages, and all kinds of weird robots and mutants and shit that are just kicking around. So it's this very interesting sort of sci-fi slash science fantasy sort of setting.
Sure.
That's pretty compelling. That I find kind of compelling. It gives me that. It gives me an itch. It gives me the game mastering itch to run. Yeah, to sneeze horribly into the microphone, and to
Yeah.
and to run something like that for like a tabletop game.
Fashionable accessory from the Bee Kingdom.
Uh, the world even has its own techno cult of the mechanists.
Isn't that from Thief?
Uh, I think they're the They might have a similar name. I'm not sure, but they're they're different than the ones from Thief, who are just straight up assholes.
They don't speaketh like old timey douchebags.
They do not.
The only reason I know anything about the Thief series is by watching Civi play Thief.
Yeah. Yeah. See, he ripped he ripped on Bolt Gun a little bit,
Oh yeah, I saw that.
which I mean I think is fair, right? There's pretty clearly inspirations from the new Doom games,
Yeah.
and more arena shootery. It's not right, which isn't bad, but it's
It's not a boomer shooter.
yeah, it's not quite a boomer shooter. It's more an arena shooter.
I need a souvenir from the Bee Kingdom. Why? Is this not the Bee? This might not be the Bee Kingdom actually.
But this isn't the Bee Kingdom. You have to go up to the
This is Defiant Root.
yeah, you have to go up the elevator, right?
Yeah, I think of this like Defiant Root as being where the Bee Kingdom is, but it's not. It's just attached to it.
It's like Canada.
Who cares about Canada? They're not even a real country anyway. Uh, what's through here? Oh, it's this person. Professor Honeycomb. It's weird that HB. It's gonna come up sometime, isn't it? Why? Just don't want to learn anything, huh?
Now, I believe in the Yick style storytelling where things are brought up and then just never and then are just never reincorporated into the story.
Yeah. I think this game may have a little bit of the opposite problem where there's just too many things going on for me to remember anything. But ADBP 2. Ooh. That would violate a number of laws of physics. Jesus Christ. It's like, what are the implications of actually finding a perpetual motion device? Like,
I mean, at the bare minimum, right, it would be the perfect energy storage method, right?
yeah.
Because any energy put into it will it will always absorb energy without any loss to
Yeah.
without any heat loss, and you can draw energy back out of it. So at the very least, it's a perfect perpetual motion machine would be a perfect battery. Um, but of course,
But
right, something that can generate energy with no cost, of course, I'm pretty sure just violates, which isn't quite a perpetual motion machine. I'm pretty sure just violates some conservation law of the universe.
yeah. Well, like it's God, I can't remember the specifics of the laws of thermodynamics, but it's something like a closed system that didn't follow those laws of thermodynamics. Like normally, like you have a flywheel or something,
Yeah,
and the more energy you put into a flywheel, the faster it turns.
yeah,
Right. Uh, and then if you had a perpetual motion device, like you'd be able to do like weird shit with
yeah.
it. I can't remember exactly,
Right, because
but
a flywheel with no energy loss would be amazing.
well, like it would speed up when you made it colder or something. I don't remember, but like weird, like basically the universe can't possibly work. Like if we found a real perpetual motion device, everything about our understanding of physics would have to be changed.
Hmm.
Like, then why does everything else in the universe behave as though there is this conservation law if there isn't?
Hmm.
Ah, I like Leaf.
You got dunked on.
Yeah. Free upgrade. I like these guys. These characters are so good. Like all the characters are so like distinct and like all of them are important, right?
Hmm.
Like they all clearly matter to the story. They've all got like a little bit of mystery happening. Like right now we're looking at into V or Vi's, but I'm sure we'll look into Kabu's later. It, and all these other characters we meet, like they all have their own personalities. Like even the random NPCs, you get a sense that they're sort of real, as opposed to Yik, which has nothing. Even the main character, who spends all his time talking at you, has no personality.
Yeah. I mean, he kind of has a personality. He just sucks.
Yeah, it's but like I'm like thinking back on it, like I can't remember anything about him. Like I remember the plot, but like I don't like what does he like? Okay, I guess he kind of likes music because his dad likes music, and so he had a video game
He
console.
really likes to put the moves on chicks when they, put their heart out and talk about how they wish they were dead.
Yeah, yeah.
Real Casanova timing right there.
Yeah, and not just chicks.
Yeah, not just chicks, dudes
Not
too.
even not
Although,
even strictly humans.
although although the creators did pussy out there a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Give us our yaoi scene, god damn it. You don't just put that shit on the table and don't address it.
Fucking Yuri baiting, yaoi baiting. God damn it. Should be illegal. Should be punishable by
Ad, ad, ad,
fucking.
admittedly, right, as we said then, right, Alex had more chemistry with Rory than he did with the presumable actual, like, straight main love interest,
Yeah.
Vela, which,
Well, if they were trying to do anything with Alex and Vela, they gave us nothing to work with.
yeah, they, like they have like no positive interactions in the entire story. Anyway, enough complaining about Yick, the game
We spent 30 hours complaining about.
yeah, and we will continue to complain about as a piece of shared trauma.
Oh, it will. It's like some things in my life, like I will never really ever get over. Right? I'll be in the shower, and and it's been years since I had like this big office job that I had, and I'd be in the shower and be like, I should have said something to my boss, or said something to my supervisor, blah blah. I would have said this, and like it's gone, complete.
Mhm.
Like we're pushing a decade, right? There's
Yeah.
no way to go back but that happens. It's the and another thing effect. You want to come back later, like, oh, now I got the perfect response. But Yick would be like that for me. I'll just be sitting here playing a good game, be like, oh damn, that game sucks.
Yeah.
I admire their dedication, and I admire like going for a project that they really care about, and I admire the art style and some of the
And
music
when they
and stuff
finally
like
do
that. But
the
it just doesn't cohere. Anyway,
when they finally do the big update to it, we can play it again.
oh god, we'll play it for like one episode to like see how things changed. But unless they're gonna like change the whole story or like everything about it, basically, there's just no point.
Hmm.
But I would revisit it for like a few hours. There's a lot of boomerangs. I like that. This guy's a man after my own heart.
Or, well, man.
Is it a woman?
I mean, they're bees, so they're all.
I guess it's true. They're all women. Whatever. An entity, Sophont after my own heart.
I mean, it is neat how they use the neck fluff to make it look kind of like a beard,
Yeah.
whereas in other of the bees, it looks more like a bandana or like a. I forget what the fuck it's even called. The piece of cloth, that goes around your
A
shoulders.
cravat?
I don't know.
Am I getting that confused with the thing that you pour orange juice out of?
Or that thing, or that the thing you like more tightly tie around your neck.
Yeah. What's the thing? An ascot? Am I thinking of an
Yeah,
ascot?
the thing I just described, I think, is an ascot. What is it? Oh, we are confused about clothing.
That's the episode title.
Yes.
Like we're like how many? We're like two something hours in, and it's like confused about when are they confused about clothing? It's just right here. That's it. That has the answer to be great, but it didn't. Yeah, no kidding. Fucking the economy, right?
The economy.
Yeah, look, if I could live in the technologically advanced bee kingdom or the just sort of regular fantasy monarchy ant kingdom, why would I ever live in the ant kingdom?
I don't know. It's a. I'm just reminded about like fucking California. It's just
Oh God,
what a ridiculous and stupid place. Like
California.
yeah, right, cause like the right, right, the land prices are
Oh
completely
yeah.
ridiculous, like completely utterly ridiculous to live anywhere that's like not literally in a desert. Uh, and
This game knows me.
Yeah,
Very appropriate.
and like, California is definitely that kind of like, this fucking like liberal thing of like, oh, we believe in equality and tolerance and fuck poor people.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. There's a whole. I got a video about it somewhere.
yeah, where,
I gotta find it.
it's like, oh, like we're gonna build like affordable housing, you know, a couple miles away from your home and a patch of, you know, land that nobody gives a shit about. Like you will literally not even see it. Uh, and yet they come in and they complain.
Fucking NIMBYs. They're
Yes,
NIMBYs. Like it's like
right.
the worst. The worst is like, hey, this thing we've been doing for decades that you haven't noticed at all. We're gonna make a slight change to it, and they're like, no, we don't want it at all. It's like you didn't care about it until 5 minutes ago.
Yeah,
I
you
hate it.
you didn't know it existed until I told you I was gonna change it.
40 berries. Okay. Found a souvenir. Who gets the souvenir? Sorry, we were ranting about NIMBYs.
Yeah. So, and that's just fucking California, right? Right, like a while ago, right? They brought in like the French like National Train Corporation, right,
Mm-hmm.
which is like a
Yeah,
state-owned company,
yeah,
to try to fix California's fucking stupid ass public transit system. And the French company was like, ha ha ha, we should build a railway from here to here because that makes the most sense. In California, it's like, well, we want to like build it like way over here instead, even though it doesn't actually service anyone because it would make one of my political donors more wealthy,
yeah. Yeah,
right?
that sounds right. Well, and I mean, they've had to bring in outside experts in a lot of places because, like, this is a big problem. I think Alan Fisher, the armchair urbanist, had a video about this for California high speed rail. One of the big issues is, we at one point we had like 250,000 miles of rail in the United
Yeah,
States. We knew how to build rail, and then we just stopped giving a shit about rail sometime in like the 40s and 50s.
yeah,
And then all those people died or moved on to other things, and all that knowledge was lost. And now we're like, well, now we want to build rail, and like, well, we don't know how to do it. And
yeah.
we could just go learn, or we could go bring in the French to have the French do it because they're good at it. And so we did that. And a lot of places are like, no, you can't have the French. Well, what are you gonna do? There's
Well,
nothing we can do about it.
either you have the French do it or you have the French teach us how to do it, right?
Yeah,
There's
either way, we're going to be talking to a lot of French people
yeah,
about trains.
right. Either way, you're gonna bite the bullet, right? Like bite the bullet train, huh? Um,
But that's right.
um,
Yeah. I mean, actually, yeah, fucking talk to the Japanese if you want to talk about high-speed rail. They've been working on their maglev technology for
yeah,
like 25 years. It's amazing.
yeah, and
500 kilometers an hour.
yeah. So yeah, you've totally lost the the practical, expertise base to build or maintain this kind of technology. So so part of building up a rail system is building back up that wealth of technical knowledge.
Yep.
It's actually kind of also like the UK and nuclear reactors, where the UK actually lacks the capacity to build uh, lacks the native capacity to build nuclear reactors anymore.
It's funny because there's a whole ass nuclear reactor in Alabama that just never got turned on.
Yeah. Uh,
They keep maintaining it.
yeah. So, you know, there are long-term consequences to totally ignoring these sorts of things. And of course, right, the technical expertise you need to build and maintain car roadway systems is a lot less.
Yeah. Well, because we've been doing it for a long time,
I mean, partially that,
among
yes.
other things. Oh.
So,
But it's just, I mean, I am enough of a American at heart to be like, I hate when people tell us we can't do something.
mhm.
We can't have that. Like other countries have that, but they're different than us. Like they're not that different than us. And also
well,
we're richer and more powerful than they are, and you're telling us we can't.
well,
Pisses me
they
off.
they misunderstand like what the institutional costs of it, right? There are certain right? There are certain programs or structures or whatever which are appropriate for different kinds of situations, right? Which is true.
Mhm.
Uh, right? But they misidentify what those cases are, right? So it's like, well, America's so big, so we can't have rail. It's like, well, that's not actually relevant, right? Uh,
Right,
the 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 relevant factor is actually how much flexibility do people need in their travel needs, right?
right.
If you basically just go to and from work, right? So basically, if all of your travel is going to and from work slash, the grocery store, which is pretty much all of my travel,
Hmm.
right? You don't really need a flexible system, right? You need an efficient system.
Right. It's
Uh,
90% of people's travel is just doing shit like that.
yeah. So, and the fact is right, 90% of people's travel is commuting or going back and forth, commuting to or from work, or going to or from shopping places.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, look, China is about the same size as the United States geographically, and they have high-speed rail, and like, oh, they're concentrated to the coast. So are we. We've got two big coasts, which are, of
I
relatively
mean,
high density,
you could
and just
also
connect them with high-speed rail.
you could also take into account like the Soviet Union as an example, right?
Right.
Right, which had a similar size and population density as the U.S., but they had a very well developed rail system,
The Trans-Siberian Railway just goes straight through.
right? Now, of course, right, there are certain, right, you probably can't completely abandon auto vehicles, right, because there
No,
are use cases,
yeah,
which,
and nobody's telling people to do that.
yeah, also that, right, but like, it's like
It's
clear, right? America, right? There's nothing unique about America that makes railway system less appealing.
No.
Uh,
If you don't like if you live in the countryside, it's silly to put a bus system out there. Have a car because traffic is low,
yeah,
right? Drive to the bus system, that's fine, or drive to the local train station, whatever. But if you live in a city, there's no reason to have all this freaking sprawl because it's just stupid.
yeah.
I gotta find this guy again. I'm doing these stupid puzzles. I don't even know where he is.
Then of course there's our stupid healthcare system.
Oh God, that's
Right.
just I can't. If I start talking about everything that's stupid with, like everything that
I mean,
what bothers me is here are problems, and we act as though how will we solve these problems? Here's three different options from all around the world with a long history of data we can look at to see how we can modify them to make them better, or what lessons we can take. And I guess it's just a mystery. We'll never figure it out. Like, ugh.
other countries figured this out. Like,
Right? Are we stupider or poorer or less capable than other countries? It's silly.
yeah.
It's insulting.
The fact is that even a very poor country can maintain a pretty effective, healthcare system if they put the work into it. Cough, cough, Cuba.
Right.
Um, and right, like the current state of affairs, right, is clearly intolerable, right?
Right.
Like it is so bad. Uh, right, and yet the
All right.
response is, how about we just do nothing?
Right. And like I'm not a fan of the Affordable Care Act. Like I think it's insufficient and market based and ideological, but it's slightly better than what we had before it. And like the idea that like no, we can't do that. We have to get rid of that because it's not good enough. I got a conversation with somebody once that's like, we have to repeal that damn communist Affordable Care Act, and I'm like, you mean the thing that before it was uh Obamacare, it was Romney Care, and it
Yeah,
was advocated by the Heritage Foundation
yeah,
as a way to maintain the market as opposed to a central system. And they're like, no, but you're like, no, your argument is stupid, and I don't care about it. I hate this puzzle. I don't think he's up there anyway. I don't see him.
yeah. It's
I'm an engineer. I get tired of people telling me what we can and cannot do.
yeah, to get shit. And of course, I don't know if I've complained on stream, but I definitely complained to you before about how it's completely fucking ridiculous that my cat has easier and better access to healthcare than I do.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Right.
had a dog once that got hit by a car and broke one of its forelimbs, and for something like that, you amputate it. It's a dog. Dogs can handle three limbs just fine at dogs. But we were, suckers, and we wanted the dog to have four limbs. So they did like, the surgery and they put a pin in it or something. And it was like, yeah, we got out of there for like $1,000, and that was like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Whereas like I went to the hospital once for just like a minor thing, and it's like, yeah, just seeing you is 2 grand. It's like, god damn.
Yeah. So like, right. So let's just take like a basic set, right, which is a
Mhm.
checkup, where they find something's where they think something's maybe wrong, so they do a X-ray and a blood test, and then at the end you get a prescription for a pill or
Right.
something, right? What is what does the process and cost of that look like, right? So for my cat, right? Well, I make an appointment with a vet, and there'll probably be availability sometime in the next 3 days, at a
Yep.
veteran at a vet that's at a vet that's probably down the street. The uh, you know so and that's like a first time intake appointment, um, and then when I show up so I make the appointment. I put in relevant medical history on their little online form. I show up 5 minutes early. I I get a room on time. I see the veterinarian probably 5 minutes after that, pretty easily. Uh,
Mhm.
they look at my cat. We have like a 10-15 minute conversation about what all's going on. They take my cat. They do an in-house blood test, in-house X-ray. Um, then they're like, well, she needs a prescription. Uh, so, which they also just have at the vet as well. And then I just pick up the prescription there, all done in a day, and that would cost. How much would you say that would cost? Like what? Like 200-300 bucks?
Yeah. I'd be surprised if for something like that if it costs more than $300 or $400. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll just say 300 bucks,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, you know, right, which is a bit, right, but
It's not nothing, but considering what you got for it, yeah.
yeah, but affordable, um, you know, especially because there's not the background cost of insurance either, right? And okay, so how much would what's the process look like for me, the human man, right? Well, I got to get in a new intake appointment, which means, well, firstly, I got to figure out out who the fuck my insurance even covers. So I have to go to their website and use their shitty search system to find a doctor. And, a new intake appointment, best case scenario, I'll get an appointment in a month.
If your doctor is taking new patients.
Yeah, if a doctor's taking new patients, I'll get an appointment in a month. I show, right. I put in all my medical history online. I show up 15 minutes early, where I am handed paperwork to fill in my medical history again,
I hate that.
along with all my insurance information. Then I'm sat down. A nurse comes talk to me, who then just asks me my medical history again.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently doing it online and via the paper wasn't enough, but I have to have someone punch it into the computer in front of me too.
And it's always that paper that's been like it's a photocopy of a photocopy of a
Yeah.
photocopy, and so you can hardly read it.
Yeah, you can hardly read it. Right. So then a half hour later after that, right, my doctor finally comes in, and I'm gonna have about 5 minutes to get anything in edgewise about my issue.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
and then it's going to be like, well, you need to do a blood test. And that means you're going to have it, right? And that's done by an external company. So you're going to have to fill out a bunch of paperwork for that shit too. And that's going to be a separate cost.
I
And
will say they separate that out because doctors were overprescribing blood tests to make money
I,
because they're minimally invasive and they
I know.
you can kind of just keep doing it. I'm just saying
Yeah.
there is a good reason sometimes.
Yeah. So, and, you're also going to have to get an x ray, which probably requires a totally separate appointment.
Yeah.
And may also require you pay a separate cost as well. And then, and you, and those results are going to come back, several days later. And then, okay, well, now you get a prescription. It's like, okay, great. Now you have to go to a pharmacy, a totally separate place, and fill out all your insurance information again, so you can pay them to get your fucking pills. Right? And how much is that all going to cost you?
A lot.
About what, like $200-300?
Yeah.
Yeah, with insurance.
Yeah. Assuming you've got good insurance and the insurance covers it, blah 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 blah.
Like that's $200-300, right?
Yeah.
Right. For the exact same set of procedures, my cat can get it done faster with no insurance and way, way less hassle.
Yep. It's all centralized.
And
Like the worst I've ever had to do is sometimes I have to order my cat's medicine online, like
Yeah.
her flea and tick stuff.
yeah, because they don't have it on hand or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And
Or I
like-
just don't feel like going to the vet. Like
Yeah.
usually they'll have it, I just don't want to go.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, sorry.
Like, why? Right. Why? Like, what the fuck? This is bullshit. Right. I understand, right? Humans are more complicated, right? Right, it's not acceptable. Like, well, he broke his leg. Let's put him down.
Yeah, it's fine. You only need one leg.
Yeah.
I'm like, no,
Yeah.
but
There's some additional complications there, right? But like, what the fuck?
it's just unacceptable.
Pay more for work. Pay as much, right? So you pay more for worse service and less done. Like,
I've had people tell me, like pharmaceutical companies have to make a profit, or they won't be able to fund new drugs. I'm like, that's not how profit works.
well, also the vast majority of their money is actually just spent on advertising.
Oh yeah, most research comes from drug research comes from the government.
And pharmaceutical companies mostly just poach patents off of government funded labs and shit.
Well, it's like I think it was Buckminster Fuller, who, somebody criticized him because he owned a number of patents on things, and he was all about sharing knowledge and stuff like that. And it was like, why did he? This doesn't make him a hypocrite. And he basically responded, I'm not holding on to these patents because I want to make a lot of money. I'm holding on to them so that some, rich jackass, he would have said it nicer because he was Bucky Fuller, but some rich jackass doesn't get to hold on to them, make a slight change, and make lots of money for himself. So
Yeah.
there's something to be said about playing the system.
The right, you do have the problem of open source stuff ending up subsidizing private interest.
Yeah.
Um,
There's an article about that, the death of open source. I forget who wrote it, but
yeah.
they make a very good point about open source. It lasts long enough for Microsoft or whoever to make their own version, make it proprietary, ship it out to every copy of Microsoft Word in the country, and then they own it forever, and now you're fucked. So there's no winning. There's no you can't that as much as I admire uh Richard Stallman, um, Richard Stallman, yeah, Stallman. As much as I admire Stallman for his, at least for his dedication to his cause, right, of free software. I don't know him as a person, but um, that is the problem with that, right? You can't write a contract so airtight that it makes capitalism not happen.
Yeah. It's
I have no idea who this guy is. He's tiny and he has a mustache. And a bow tie, rather. I don't know. I don't know who this guy is. I'm do a different quest. Area near the tunnel of the Ant Kingdom. Where is that? Tunnel of the Ant Kingdom. Ant Kingdom. So it must be here.
I mean, it might be. I mean, there's a possibility, right? That some of these things are in future areas you haven't unlocked, but
I guess so. I feel like I shouldn't be able to get the quest then.
I don't know.
I mean, this game does have its quirks, but I think it's that well designed at least.
Yeah. Also, I played a little bit of that Saturday afternoon RPG thing with Damon and some other randos.
People from the other streams on this channel, yes.
Yeah. And gotta say, you really temper Damon's suicidal tendencies as a RPG.
Really?
In his RPG characters, because he was he was instrumental in helping the whole party get TPK'd. Like, yeah, let's fight these fire beetles. Like, why? Why do you want to fight these fire beetles? They're literally just off in the corner eating a lizard carcass. Like,
yeah, that's one thing I've noticed DMing is like players will get fixated on something that just isn't relevant, and it's we're gonna they'll come up with a plan, and the plan is silly because it's the first plan they come up with, and then they'll get hooked on that, and then have to do that, or they'll make an assumption about a character that is like no backing at all, and they'll be like, and then they'll make decisions on it, and then later they'll be like, but what about this thing? Isn't this character like that? And I'm like, are they like?
yeah,
So.
I mean, and also, right, what's also especially funny, right, is when they encounter evidence that contradicts their assumptions, And then they just ignore the contradictions, right?
Yeah.
Like
And
this guy's totally evil, right? Well, here's him like, petting puppies, and it's like obviously a facade.
yeah, exactly. And you want to be like, are you doing this on purpose, or are you like just like looking at your character sheet and not thinking, or like because you can't just shake them and go, no, no, that's Strahd in disguise. He's a bad guy or whatever. But you can't just tell them that because that ruins the fun. But
Yeah.
the tunnel to the end. Where's? I wonder if that's.
Is that not the underground area where
That's what I thought. But
I
could
mean,
also be. We're talking about the cable car. It could also be like there's a way to connect the Ant Kingdom to. There's the power plant. Maybe it's there.
is it that guy?
No, that guy wants to take me. Wait, he wants to take me places. The Ant City Plaza. Is that not just up there? I don't know why I'd pay to go there. Are they in here? Don't seem to be in here. They look they look like that.
Mm-hmm.
GS technician.
I don't know. If you really can't find it, you just look up a guide.
Yeah, I've been trying to avoid doing that, but I think I'm just gonna wander around here aimlessly forever if I don't look up a guide. So,
So, the
guess I'll look up a guide. Bug Fables walkthrough. All-inclusive 100% guide on Reddit.
yeah, and
There's the wiki. God bless wiki people. GS.
yeah, because
GS
like
technician.
the one shot was in the hole in the oak dungeon as well, right? So like with new characters though, right? And like they went and they encountered the gnomes, and they got their ass kicked, right? And they managed to drag they managed to get out of that situation, right? Heal up a bit, and they were like, we can totally take those gnomes, and went back and got their asses kicked again. It's like, what part of
Yeah.
you getting owned the first time wasn't clear enough? Right, and like they didn't have like a plan or anything. It was just like rush in and win. It's like
Yeah, I know where they are now.
like you did that last time when they weren't alert and you got you nearly all died. What made you think that?
The thing is, I like my characters and I want them to live.
Yeah,
Apparently, he's.
crunchy leaf.
Oh, thank you. No, come back. God, stupid bridge detent, come on. No! No, the cat.
No.
The cat. Why is the cat? Come here, cat. Uh, uh, yes. Yes, you're cute and fuzzy. Yes, you are. Yes, you're a good cat. Yes, I love you. I love you, cat. Go over there. You're very good, very fuzzy. I was just kind of freaking out.
Yeah.
All right. Boop. See here? Boop. Ah, right. I'm remembering how this goes now. The wiki says he can be found here, maybe? Yeah. Cable car. There's a cable car in the Golden Path, which is around here somewhere. Shut up. Oh, come on. Oh, God, hold on. My cat has found a unique way to be a pain in my ass.
What way is
Uh,
this?
she's climbed into one of the pillows. Oh, she's gonna hurt herself. Hold on. No, no, there's not safety. Don't go through. Come back. Not a tube. You can't come out the other side. Oh. And she got what she wanted, which was to get on my desk. Oh, kitty cat. Oh, no, you kitty cat. You still can't be up here. You still can't be up here. I'm doing something. I know. I know I've been doing something for a while. I know I haven't been petting you. But maybe you won't do that again. Dumb cat. You dumb fuzzy thing. Why do I love you so much? This is the stupidest thing I've ever loved. All right, what am I doing?
You're looking for the guy near a cable car.
Right. Come on, really? Ugh. There we go. Just wait, shall I? Did this get me anywhere? I don't think this actually got me anywhere. I'm not sure this is one of those things. I probably should come at it from the other direction, but whatever. I'm already here. Throwing this fucking boomerang is the most annoying thing in the whole goddamn game. Okay. And I think this goes back up. All right. Maybe it's over that way?
So it's the 30th anniversary of the Star Fox franchise.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. You know what Nintendo did to celebrate?
What's that?
Literally nothing.
Yeah, I don't know. Nintendo doesn't like any of its slightly less popular properties ever.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of the thing, right? It's like, well, if it's Mario or Zelda, right? All the love in the world, right? But like any of their like slightly less popular, right? Still very profitable, but slightly less popular
Yeah.
franchises. It's
Last
like
F-Zero game was on the GameCube.
they're like, get fucked. We don't care.
Hmm. I mean, at least Metroid got a game, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's not Metroid Prime 4. Which it freaking should be.
I mean, that's still theoretically in development, but like,
Yeah, theoretically.
who knows what sort of state that is.
Well, I think I have to freeze these guys. Yeah, this I think is just a puzzle. I don't think I've done this. What? Oh, I see. Nope, that's not what I'm supposed to do with that, I guess. Oh, right.
So, what would your ideal Sonic game be?
So I once saw a demo of a 3D Sonic game where like it was all about like motion and speed, and it's sort of like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, like where it's all about like maintaining momentum and doing tricks and stuff like that. Um, and the conceit was as you turned, Sonic would stay like relative to the screen would stay in position, and the world would turn around him, and that's what it would look like. And so you could do all sorts of cool like you get a really intuitive view, a really intuitive feel for like where you're gonna go and stuff like that. And you take ramps and loops and you string things together to get to new places. Um, and that I think would have made a really really cool Sonic game. Can I jump that?
Sonic's Pro Skater 2,
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember at all what it was called.
now featuring Tony Hawk.
Tony Hawk is basically like real life Sonic, only more chill. Fuck. This one puzzle combines everything I hate about this game. Like I love this game. It's a great game, but come on. Why am I avoiding these things?
Yeah, you
I
don't
can
have
just
to.
jump straight through them.
Yeah. You're too tough for them.
I am. And I don't think they disrupt my momentum.
Yeah.
Oh. It's a healing thing. Gross. Soup's gross. You know what? I'm actually gonna... Okay, cool. Oh, neat. Uh,
someone brought this up. I thought it was interesting, right? So for a while at least, right? For certain parts of particle accelerators, they had to source steel that was made prior to World War II.
oh yeah, because it doesn't have radiation in it.
Yeah,
Radioactive material in it.
yeah. So, and that and drew this to an analogy of they're going to of how it's gonna play out with pre AI internet content to train on.
Oh yeah, Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
so it's not training off of other AIs. Right. So they're
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, things are either going to be gibberish or like way too real.
I mean, I think that it's mostly just hype, and it's not going. It's going to have very limited use cases, and is otherwise just
I think AI could do stuff like maybe making in-betweening easier for
Oh yeah,
animators.
yeah. There are definitely certain very powerful narrow use cases like in between. Like that would be a great use, because that's such a huge labor-intensive part of the process. Uh, and that could potentially really drive down the costs of animation. Um, but of course, mostly they're just going to use it as a threat to fuck over, people in creative fields.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm just gonna lose this.
Also, I think you also have the dream of certain social media places, social media companies of like, right, like they want to turn your experiences like TikTok, right, where it's just like this fucking endless torrent of bullshit, right? Uh, and to be like, well, let's just cut out the human part of it, right? So we just have an AI that just generates algorithmically an endless torrent of bullshit customized to you specifically.
Fucking Lotus Eaters. Mm,
I mean, reload last save and avoid it altogether, or do you think you can do it if you set
well,
yourself?
I think I have some poison stuff that would help out. Yeah. Uh, poison. Oh, let's try that. Oh, good. I don't have to spy again. That's nice.
Yeah.
All right. How do I maximize damage here?
Well, he has low defense, so lots of little
Yeah.
attacks help.
Lots of what?
So lots of little attacks are fine.
I wonder if I can get. It says ignore one defense. Can I actually lower his defense even more?
I don't think so, because it's
I'd be
0.
surprised. Let's do this then. Great. All right, I forgot. She also cures poison. Oh, plants can't sleep. great.
Just normal attack?
I guess so. Yeah, I'm gonna need to come back to this one.
Yeah.
Oh. And she's just gone.
So, here's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Top, top, top videos to fall asleep to.
I use the Sleep With Me podcast. He tells like a boring story about something. Sometimes he summarizes Star Trek episodes. Sometimes you just make something up where like he voices every character in the same voice.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that reminds me that Torch Ship tabletop RPG is still ticking along in development. Can't wait for that.
One day.
Gonna run it, and you guys are just gonna be a bunch of fucking straight up red imperialists.
I mean, you say that like I'm not already.
Yeah, it's just.
Certainly, I've been accused.
Hello, world of primitives. We have come to bring you glorious space socialism in the form of nukes.
I mean, I'm definitely like legit. Who gives a fuck about the Prime Directive, right?
Yeah.
It's just a storytelling thing. Like in reality,
I mean,
there's absolutely no way you wouldn't like study these things, and it's just silly.
I mean, like in the original series, right? It makes like what the Prime Directive even is, right? Clearly evolves from series to series over time, right? So, in the original series, right? It's pretty clearly right a clause meant to prevent Starfleet captains from just determining Federation policy, right? Determining Federation foreign policy, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, you're a captain, you're out in the frontier, you gotta make decisions, but you don't make policy decisions, right? So
Yeah, I mean that's reasonable, right?
You're not allowed to get involved in wars or politics of other planets without the Federation government saying you can.
Yeah, it makes a certain amount of sense.
And of course, some degree of leaving the primitives to be on their silly little planets makes a certain amount of sense, right? In the next generation, right, this evolves into this sort of broader, like, non-interference concept as not something specifically for Starfleet captains, but like this sort of Federation-wide, like, non-interference policy, which doesn't really make a lot of sense as a great power.
Well, I think, and then they screwed it up even more in Enterprise.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, one of these groups is just going to genocide the other group if we don't interfere, and they're like, yeah, we're just gonna let that happen. Like, okay.
Yeah. Right, which also doesn't even make sense because the Prime Directive doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, I think the idea was like that was sort of the like how do you handle these sort of ethical problems? Like, oh, we'll just have a one size fits all Prime Directive.
Right. Well, the answer is Well, that's a stupid way to write the story, right? They should have done it the opposite way, where it's like they run into a problem which they think is simple, right? And then they get way too involved, and it all goes terribly wrong. And then at the end, they're like, maybe we should recuse ourselves from such situations in the future.
Yeah, like unless there's like a clear moral option,
Yeah.
or like, all right, we'll just take all of these, people, this group that's going to be genocided and move them to a different planet or whatever, right? Or like if we don't, the interfering is the least bad of the available options. There you go. But yeah, if there's like, hey, we stumbled across, Nazi planet. Do we give Nazi planet warp drive? No.
Yeah. Let's not.
Right.
Now, one thing I actually really, really dislike about Star Trek Brave New World is what they've done.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
I know which one.
the newer one that's less shitty.
Yes.
Is that they've totally fucked with the Gorn. They like that.
Oh?
Right. So how much of that series have you watched?
Like the first 2 episodes, I guess.
All right. So you remember the Gorn from TOS from the one episode.
The lizard dudes. Yeah.
The lizard guy, right? So, what would you say is the moral and the point of that episode?
I don't know if I ever actually saw that episode. I know of the Gorn, but I don't know if I've seen that episode.
All right. Well, okay.
So
So fake Star Trek fan over here.
well, yeah. Okay.
Okay. I will explain it. Right. So in that episode, right, in the original series, right, the Enterprise is like they got a distress call from a colony that's like right way off on the edge of Federation space. It's been recently founded. They go out there. They find it's been blasted to bits. They get ambushed by some Gorn. The Gorn. They fight the Gorn a bit. The Gorn start to run away. The Enterprise chases them back down, right? And then both the Gorn ship and the Enterprise is caught by like this, space god, guy, because this is the original series, and
right.
this is sort of a thing, right? And in this space, this omnipotent space entity is like, well, we shall have this resolved instead by single combat by your captains.
Okay.
Right? And teleports.
Now I know where the Gorn fighting scene comes from.
Yeah, so the Gorn captain and Kirk are, brought down to this planet, and they are being made to fight for the amusement of this god creature. And it comes to light that the planet was originally a Gorn planet, and the Federation had been encroaching on their territory, and that's why they attacked. And at the end, the Gorn's super strong, but Kirk outsmarts him and basically creates like a bamboo cannon and shoots him, knocking him out. And he has the Gorn captain at his mercy, and he chooses not to kill him, right? Because he won't give in to being, a plaything for this god thing. And,
he's Kirk. That's what Kirk does.
Enacting, mindless violence on, a terrible misunderstanding. Right, and the god odd aliens, like, is ultimately impressed by this and lets him go, right? And that's the end of the episode, right? So, the broad moral here is, right, like, trying to get over your, right, perspective to realize that maybe that, murdering everybody isn't a great idea.
Right.
Maybe the
stopping the cycle of violence.
Yeah, maybe we can stop the cycle of violence and come to some greater understanding of things. Right. Great episode, classic. Very corny, love it still anyway. Okay.
Star Trek.
So the Gorn in Brave New Worlds are changed into basically xenomorphs.
Okay. So they're just like mindless
They're
killing
intelligent.
machines.
They're intelligent, but like they abduct other sentient alien species and like implant their eggs in them. And, they're like chest bursters, and so every Gorn is
Yeah.
born a murderer, and right,
God.
and this whole thing. And it's like, wow, like, way to like totally miss the point. Like, like, this doesn't right. And again, right, this is supposed to be prior to when that episode takes place in, like the overall timeline. Like that makes no sense, right? That retroactively makes Captain Kirk's actions completely irrational, right? If that
Right.
were true, right? Because like they're fucking xenomorphs. Like there's no getting on with it. There's no getting along with that period,
No.
right? It can't be done, right? Not even like out of like some weird moral thing, right? It's just like laws of nature at that point.
It's like that guy who tried to go live in the woods with bears. Like,
Yeah, the bears are gonna just
bears win.
yeah the bears are just gonna maul you, right? That's
Right.
right. It's not because they're evil or whatever. It's because they're bears.
And I
Um,
mean, like, okay, fine, don't go to where the bears are. But if the bears build spaceships and come after you,
yeah,
what
then
do you do?
yeah, then maybe we're gonna have then maybe nuking some bear colonies isn't such a bad idea.
It's at least maybe it's the least bad thing to do. You
Yeah.
know?
Um, right. So it totally misses the point, right? And it turns the Gorn into just boring, alien, space monsters, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, why, like, wouldn't it be like way more interesting if the Gorn were like a nuanced political entity of an intelligent species and whatnot? And they're like, no, xenomorphs. We need to be more like, we need to, you need to be more like, we need to be darker and edgier. That's what the kids want. And it's just like, oh, fucking.
Yeah, it's just it's like they did Discovery and nobody liked how dark and edgy and it was to the extent that it was dark and edgy. And they're like, all right, well, we're going to do Picard, and it's not going to be like Discovery. And then it's more like Discovery than Discovery was.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, all right, nobody liked that, so now we're going to do Brave New Worlds. And Brave New Worlds is like, people are like, okay, I kind of like the episode. I think they're like, and now this. And I think I think the Red Letter Media guys, they talk about it a lot. And the impression I get from listening to them is nobody currently writing for Star Trek knows anything about Star Trek. Like, these aren't people who care about Star Trek or tried to like understand what Gene Roddenberry was trying to go for. Like,
Yeah, I understand, right? A lot of people in the creative industry, right? You get projects and they're a job, right?
yeah,
Uh, you know,
I don't
you're
know.
you get a job in the Star Trek show or the Star Wars. You can get a job in a series where you're not a super fan of it, but at least do like the minimum amount of work into it. Like,
Yeah,
be broadly familiar with like why anybody even likes the thing you're making.
like it's like there's a difference between like you have an office job, you're a spreadsheet jockey, it sucks, you do the bare minimum to get by. I
Yeah,
get it. But if I mean to a certain extent, if you're, an actual like script writer
yeah,
for a project like a Star Trek show, you're kind of lucky. Like I
yeah,
understand no job is, perfect, but you should, and even if you don't like it, you should at least be like, all right, how can I tell a good story with these elements? Like if somebody, okay, you look at the Twilight movies, which I have seen all of because of riff tracks.
hmm
You look at the Twilight movies, and the last Twilight movie, there's like a scene in it, and I think I've told you about this, but for people who don't know, there's a scene in it where like the two big groups of vampires they fight, and they're using their powers, they're like
yeah,
tearing like earth open, and there's fire. It's cool, right? It's the only cool thing in the whole freaking series, and it turns out, oh, this is just a vision of the future. What happens if we do fight? But for like 5 minutes, the director was like, "I'm gonna tell this story. I'm gonna make it cool for 5 minutes." Right.
yeah,
And so, like, I don't think the director of that or the writers of that were like, "Oh, I love Twilight. I'm gonna do the." No, they did a decent job, as far as I can tell, of translating the books. And but they tried to do something, right?
yeah,
Just try to do something to
yeah,
respect the source material, even if you don't like it.
yeah. You know, and jobs suck, right? But creative jobs are so difficult to get.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to get it right, like there, there's a certain amount of expectation that you put like a you you give a tiny amount of a shit.
Even if it's formulaic and like not like immensely like you don't have not
Yeah,
every episode has to be the one where uh Cisco engages in a conspiracy to lie to his own government.
yeah. Just have
Right.
just write a fucking bottle episode, right?
Yeah, right. Just write it. Pick a formula out of nowhere and write it, and just be. It'll be fine. It'll be decent, right? Like, uh,
Yeah, and yeah, the people currently in charge of Star Trek are like, we have, right, are we have never seen Star Trek. We don't understand Star Trek, and we don't know why anyone else likes Star Trek.
it's the one with Yoda, right? This is the
Yeah,
one with Yoda.
yeah, the one with Yoda. You know, live long and may the Force be with you. It was our last best hope for peace, right?
But in my head, the part of Babylon 5 you never see, the backside of the fusion reactor, just has J. Michael Straczynski written on it in gigantic letters, and nobody knows why. I watched the first 4 seasons of Babylon 5. I don't think I'm gonna watch the last one because
No, you don't need to.
no. Oh, it's an enemy rush. All right, I see where we are.
Kick their asses. So it's
Yeah, and I mean, people complain about like people who like okay, the new Star Wars movies,
mhm.
right? But like, just because it's not what you like doesn't mean it's like. It's like there is a if you want to be creative in the way you tell stories and like go against the rules, that's fine. But and the rules are there to be broken.
Yeah,
The
but
reason the rules exist is because we derive them from our psychological like
yeah,
understanding of narrative, and people will find them more satisfying if you follow them. And so you are being kind of
but
irresponsible if you take this franchise people love and write a crappy story about it.
the Star Wars movies are baby stories for babies, right?
Right.
With pew pew lasers. They're not terribly complicated.
And space wizards.
Yeah.
But that's what I hate is like, oh, there's wizards in space. It doesn't have to make sense. Like, yes, it does. It's still a story, and
Yeah,
it's not a complicated story. These are not.
and
This is blatant pulp, good versus evil
yeah,
crap.
and they fall prey to things like scope creep really fast in the Disney sequels. Right,
Yes.
so it's like, oh, the Death Star's the size of a moon, right? Which is already ridiculous, right? But like, oh well, our Death Star's gonna be a whole planet. It's like what the fuck? And it's like, oh, and it's not just gonna destroy one planet at a time. It's gonna destroy like 5 planets at a time. It's like,
And you can blame J.J. Abrams, and I'm not saying he doesn't have a role to play in the problem, but I mean, a movie is a project, and a
yeah,
trilogy of movies is a big project, and projects get planned
yeah,
before you start them. And granted, no plane ever survives contact with the enemy, but you do at least have to kind of have a direction that you're going into, like a cohesive understanding. Don't just be like, well, here's some notes for the next guy. Like you say to the next director, here's the movie you're going to make narratively. You can
yeah,
put your own like directorial spin on it, but this is the story we're telling.
yeah. Uh, right, and then the last one, which I didn't even see, but like, it's like,
I
and
did.
then there's like 100 bazillion fucking star destroyers on this planet. It's like,
Yep.
like, yeah, that.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that, like, you know how there's like power creep in video games,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's scope creep in narratives, right?
I think that's probably true. That's certainly true of long fantasy series.
You know, where it's just like, how we're gonna make it epic is just by making it bigger, right. You know, well, before we were just saving this city, so now we're saving the country, now we're saving the world, then the galaxy, right? And it's just like,
That's
you know,
why.
it's like fucking, it's like fucking Gurren Lagann minus like any bit of self awareness.
I was gonna say, Gurren Lagann's a good example of that. Did you see the? It's a short film, Kung Fury.
Yes.
I love that short film because it's it does that, but it's tongue in it.
Yeah, it's
God,
it's very
I
clearly
love it.
satirical in character, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah, it has fucking David Hasselhoff in it. It's awesome.
what time is this? The Viking era. That explains all the dinosaurs.
Yeah. The whole thing's a time loop because Hitler. It's uh, in
Yeah,
the scene where he's beating up all the Nazis. Oh, it's so good.
yeah. So,
Animated bit where he goes to the afterlife.
mhm.
The vending machine that tries to kill everybody, or the arcade game rather. God, I love that. But I don't know.
If you love that,
I feel a little.
if you love
What?
that, you should try out Far Cry Blood Dragon. That's pretty
Oh, I
fun.
did.
Yeah,
Oh, I love Far Cry Blood. I gotta play it again. I
best
love
best
that
Far Cry
shit.
game. Best
Oh, it's
Cry.
the only one I've finished it's the only one I've completed.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. This is.
God.
But yeah, scope creep is a real thing in narratives, and like the Star Wars sequels just totally succumb to it pretty much immediately, along with the worst aspects of like other like Star Wars related media, such as every fucking story having to do with somehow being connected to the same dozen or so people.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that's
Yeah.
sort of refreshing about Andor, right? Which is that it's about a bunch of random schlubs in the galaxy, but it's
Oh. I haven't watched Andor, but I'm told it's good. Ooh.
yeah, it's pretty good.
I'm not. I probably won't watch it.
Yeah, it's fine.
I'm sure it's fine. I just don't care.
That's fair and valid. Honestly, I just don't find for the most part, I don't find the greater Star Wars universe to be terribly compelling as a setting.
No. Definitely want to keep that. Want to keep that one. Actually, I think I need to keep Kabu in the back if he's going to get defense boosted, because he's sort of a tanky guy. And then I'd like to get one. Okay, I don't really need that. Where was the one I just got? There it is. Yeah. Okay.
So
Cool.
it's what time is it? Let me check.
Late.
It's about 1 in the morning for me. So
I'm sorry.
yeah, it's
I still haven't got enough berries to buy the ticket, which was my original goal for this episode. But that's fine. Something to do next episode.
so, in the break, right? So in the break rooms at work, they have TVs and whatnot. They leave them on random shit. One of the other day, the break room TV was playing like the DC Aquaman movie or something, right? Or one of
Not the
them.
worst movie, but
Yeah, and like the villain,
pretty movie.
right? And the villain was right? And the character who's supposed to be like the villain is like, we must destroy the surface dwellers because they are poisoning the oceans and killing all of us. And I was like, you know what? Hashtag valid. Truth. It's
Like
like,
maybe you don't gotta kill them,
yeah,
but
but
doing something good. Yeah.
yeah, like, so like here's the thing, right? You know, in writing they say, you know, like, have villains who have like real motivations that are relatable in some manner, right?
Right.
And I think what Hollywood has taken this to mean is, let's make the villain basically just right, uh like they are just correct, and then let's have them pursue that goal, which is plainly true and good, and which is plainly true and correct and whatnot. Let's have them pursue that goal in a completely psychotic and idiotic way.
Right. Thanos.
Right. Uh, and right, and by right, and like I think that kind of misses the 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 whole idea, right? Like like the villain is motivated by money and power. It's like, well, yeah, like a lot of terrible, well, yeah, like lots of terrible people are are in real life are motivated by money and power. Like that makes sense as a motivation.
Yeah. It's at least one we've seen before
Yeah.
and would be realistic.
Yeah, it's like realistic, and instead what they end up doing, I think, is sort of circuitous, in sort of a circuitous roundabout way, right, is like trying to like villainize like anyone who wants the world to be like better in any way, right?
Yeah, it's what I had an English teacher refer to that as an anti-dystopia, or an anti-utopia rather. Like the Hunger Games. The
Yeah,
Hunger Games is an anti-utopia. It's like it is not merely dystopian. It is against the idea that any change is going to be effective.
yeah, where, you know, it's like, you know, the this terrible villain wants life to be slightly better in some way. What a monster! It's like, what?
I think the problem with the I just want money and power motivation is people are like, okay, but what will you do with that? And like, that's a real question in real life.
Yeah,
Like, why do you want money and power?
and the real answer is that they're just fucking psychos.
Yeah, but if you did that, they have to be like, is the CEO of the company who made this crap a psycho? Like, statistically, pretty
Yeah,
good chance.
yeah. I mean, like, what motivates Elon Musk? He's an egotistical moron.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, so going back to Thanos, right? And this has parallels to real life. If Thanos, who is clearly not stupid,
Yeah.
right? Because I mean, look at the thing he pulled off. Look at the long planning. Look at how he motivated people. Look at the he is at very least quite good at, because he was like a researcher, right? Like a
Yeah.
scientist.
Yeah.
Like
So
if he had been
he's clearly supposed to be very intelligent. Yes.
right and capable and all sorts of things. If he were as intelligent as somebody in his position ought to have been, an interesting way to take him would have been to be like, let's have him like do research. Like, I want to get the Infinity Stone so I can change this fundamental law of the universe so that entropy doesn't work the same way, right? Like, we're not going to kill half of all people. We're going to do this, and if you get in my way, if I have to, I will, hurt you, kill you, because once I've done this thing, an infinite amount of time and an infinite number of people will be saved and happy because I've changed the way the universe works. And then that makes it a genuine, like, genuine actual, like, not only a good motivation, a good, at least a somewhat good process. He actually thought about, like, okay, what will actually achieve this goal that motivates me? Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, those people say their goal is something like, I want to live in an O'Neill cylinder in space, I want humanity to be a multi-planet species, which are great goals, and having been associated with these people are sort of tainted, which I don't like. But if if you were actually smart about it, like, okay, so why do you need your own rocket company? There's already rocket companies, right? If you
Mhm.
think the technology isn't good enough, start a think tank to do technology development. If you think NASA isn't being run properly, start an advocacy group to like change the way that government science projects are run and funded, right? There are, instead of reinventing the wheel and having to own part of it yourself, there's lots of things you can do with all those billions of dollars and the ability to like grab people and coordinate them and motivate them and hook and move them together, that will actually accomplish a whole lot more both in the short term and the long term than I'm going to build my own rocket company and
Yeah.
have my name on it.
Yeah,
Right?
but
That's silly.
yeah, but it doesn't make Elon Musk rich and powerful.
Well,
So
that's exactly my point.
yeah,
Is clearly the motivation is I want to be a big swinging dick and be rich and powerful and have my name on the moon, instead of I actually have this goal I want to accomplish.
yeah,
Right? So
yeah.
there's interesting parallels.
Now, I mean, I will give, I will give some writer credit, right? So in the comics, right, Thanos is in love with the literal embodiment of death,
Yeah.
right, and that's his primary motivation. He wants to impress death.
Yes.
So how do you impress death? You kill a fuck ton of people. Um,
I guess.
uh, of course, it's actually funny that the writers of the comics sort of have fun with this, where Thanos is in love with Death, but Death is actually in love with Deadpool, who can't die.
I I did hear about that, which is
Yeah.
why he can't die apparently,
Um,
or just he just happens to be able not to die, and that's why she loves him. I don't know.
I don't know, but right. So how do you translate that motivation into like a movie movie that's trying to be mildly like trying to be a modicum more serious, um, or less campy? Um, and some weird Malthusian thing. It's like okay, that kind of vaguely that sort of maps on right. He's in love with the concept of death. Death is in a more metaphorical way in this case. Um, but yeah, they just love given they just love making villains who are right and just turning them into psychos who do stupid shit for no reason. Um,
Yeah,
and it's really just gotten worse over the years, right? Like
it's
there's
lazy.
like I can think of some like slightly older examples of it. I think like Kreia from Knights of the Old Republic 2 is actually a pretty good example of this.
It's one of those games I haven't played. I have a copy.
Yeah,
I
it's
just
very
haven't
good.
played it.
I mean, it's good, but like so like in KOTOR 2, right? So Kreia's motivation is she wants to kill the Force. Right.
Okay.
Right. Well, that's her objective, right? So the idea is that it's almost this sort of meta critique of like Star Wars like as a setting, right? Right, the Force is the source of all conflict in the galaxy, right? Big Force users are the primary movers and shakers of all of the major conflicts of the world. Conflicts start and end because the Force needs to be
Yeah.
brought to balance or something, right? And it also removes people's free will in a sense, right? Because you ultimately have to just go along with whatever the fuck the Force is telling you to do, right? And so he's like, you know what? The galaxy would ultimately just be better off without the Force, flat out, right? Because basically the Force has no like everyday utility. Like it doesn't feed people, it doesn't heal people, it doesn't make life better or more pleasant in any way. It's just sick wizard powers for assholes to kill each other over.
Yeah, makes sense.
Uh, and naturally, right? And like, well, and it's like, well, that's actually like a really good motivation. It is like this, actually this kind of brilliant meta critique of like Star Wars as a franchise, right? Where it's just this endless cycle of the conflict between the light and dark sides of the Force, where it's like maybe we should the struggle between good and evil, and maybe we should move beyond good and evil.
Ah,
Uh,
that's a good game.
yeah. Um,
Even if it was unfinished and got rushed at the end.
yeah. So you could definitely
Yeah.
tap into like this existentialist, beyond on good and evil, right beyond this endless cycle of violence that grinds up trillions of lives and galaxy-wide conflicts
Right.
over the course of hundreds and thousands of years of the Star Wars setting. Uh, and just be over with it, just be done with it. And of course, they have her try to accomplish this in the most psychotic manner possible.
Of course. By what? Killing lots of people?
Oh yeah, like creating a basically creating a psychic, basically creating a psychic effect that will kill all Force users.
Okay.
Right. Which I think it sort of which is where I think the writing sort of drops the ball. I'd imagine.
I mean, wouldn't it be better to just like, I don't know. I guess you can't really win a war of attrition, but like the goal would really be make people forget about the Force.
Hmm.
If you're gonna do like a big psychic blast, why not just wipe the memory of the Force from everybody's brains
Yeah.
in the whole galaxy or whatever?
Hmm. And of course, right, it's also like a brilliant conflict for a main character in a video game RPG, right? Because
Mm.
it challenges the player directly of like how much do you like how do you really feel about the Star Wars universe?
Yeah. So, this is sort of similar. This that movie I like, Tomorrowland, that I'm like the only person. Me and like four other people are the only people who actually liked that movie.
Yeah.
Um, the the villain played by Hugh Laurie, and I fucking love Hugh Laurie. Um, his he basically what he's doing is in an attempt to so basically they have this machine, the group that lives in the other dimension that's like made up of all the famous scientists you've ever heard of, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
They have this machine that lets them like predict the future to a high degree of accuracy,
Hmm.
right? And they predict that basically the world's going to end.
Hmm.
Nuclear explosions, flooding, everything horrible thing you can think of in like a month,
Hmm.
right? And so they've used this machine to like beam into everybody's heads, like psychically, sort of. They have an explanation for it. This sense of the world's going to end,
Yeah.
and with the idea of they'll be afraid and they'll try to stop it from happening, and basically it doesn't work.
Hmm.
What ends up happening is you see billboards through like there's movies, there's TV shows about like what if the world ends? How are you going to be prepared? Like that kind of stuff, right?
Hmm.
Um, and there's just a general sense of despair and cynicism about any kind of change whatsoever. And so they get to the end game, and the villain Hugh Laurie gives his big villain speech, and this is kind of a point of contention amongst the Tomorrowland fan community, because he basically says, if you looked into the future and were frightened by what you saw, what would you do? Who would you go to? Politicians, captains of industry, they only care about what keeps the wheels greased and the money rolling in. We warned you, and you just ran straight for the iceberg anyway. You're
Hmm.
full steam ahead, and that's not our fault. Like, all we did was show you.
Hmm.
That's your fault. And then the next immediate thing that happens is they have a big fight,
Hmm.
and the implication of the fight is that oh, this is us fighting against this thing because we want you to turn the machine off, and you're dedicated to your own perspective, and you're not going to turn the machine off, which is fair, I guess, because he is sort of hastening the end of the world in a way that isn't really explained. But the big problem that I have with it is he's fucking right,
Yeah,
right?
like
I mean,
what?
what would you do?
Right, like I mean, like where's the false bit? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Where's the lie though?
yeah,
Okay, maybe his methods are wrong, although they don't really explain. They kind of explain it. It's not the movie has its flaws, right? I still like it for the message, and for Hugh Laurie. But like this big question that they've been hinting at the whole film. They've been getting into it. Like, what do you do when you're the only? Seems like you're the only one who cares about saving the world,
yeah,
right? Which is a great question. What do you do? And then the movie just doesn't answer it,
yeah,
right? Oh, you kill the villain and then the world's saved.
yeah. Because
It, it,
like, because I mean, it's pretty clear as things go on that this ship, there ain't nobody at the wheel.
it's
Uh,
amazing you say it that way because that is the underlying plot of a Disney show whose name I can't remember. The Mysterious Benedict Society. That's
yeah.
it. Literally that metaphor. No one's at the wheel.
Not only is there no one at the wheel, there ain't no one in the fucking bridge. The 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 whole the ship's officers are all playing craps in the casino.
Yep. And then when you tell them there's an iceberg, they tell you that
Icebergs are
ice
fake.
yeah, icebergs don't exist, and you're a dirty communist for thinking they do.
Yeah.
Or even if you're just like, well, what if we had a ship that was capable of avoiding icebergs if we ever found one? And they're like, no, icebergs will never happen. It's not possible for icebergs to happen. And if it does happen, well, our ship is the best ship.
Yeah.
Where am I going?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going the right way. What if we build a ship that's capable of avoiding icebergs and we don't find an iceberg? Well, one day there will be an iceberg. But that's what pisses me out. I in my head I keep trying to rewrite that film, and I don't know how you maintain that film as it is and answer that question. For one thing, I don't have a good answer to that question,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think anybody does. That, you know, it's not a very satisfying answer, even if you had one that would work, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm skeptical. But I don't know. It's weird to pose a question and then not have an answer to it, and then that's the whole point. That's why the film feels open ended to me,
Yeah.
or unfinished. It's just anyway. It's the same kind of thing. He's right, and he's gonna kill a lot of people for it, but he's right. And the only answer I've gotten, so there's a podcast, the Tomorrowland Times podcast, and I love those guys because they did a deep dive. Like they took the movie, split it into like 15-minute chunks, and did an hour on every. It's amazing, right? They're fantastic. And I learned a whole lot, and they have a great perspective, and they changed my mind about a lot of things, particularly about the plotting of the film and its themes. But I'm just not satisfied with their explanation for the speech, because their explanation seems to be, well, Nix is the villain. He's very
Mm-hmm.
clearly the villain, so what he says is necessarily wrong,
Yeah.
right?
But
No.
but the problem is that we don't live in a society where the the authorities are both care and are effective.
Right.
Right. The authorities are mostly ineffective and absolutely do not care. Right.
Right.
Like zero shits given. Right. The world the world's gonna end. Well, that sucks for you. I'm going to New Zealand.
And there was a guy, I can't remember who I don't remember names and details. I have all this stuff listed in my notes somewhere, so I can always pick it up. But there's a guy, and they brought him in, a bunch of rich people to talk, like, what do you think is going to be the future of technology? And he goes in, and they're basically like, so how do we keep our, servant ex-Marines from killing us and stealing all the food when the world ends? And he was like, well, first of all, you should treat them as nicely as though they were your own family, so they genuinely come to care for you. And second,
AKA
if you
feudalism. But
And second, if you did that to everybody,
yeah.
maybe the world wouldn't end. And they're like, no.
How
What
about
about shock collars? You think
yeah,
shock collars?
yeah,
So the what do you do with that?
yeah. I mean,
What go to your bunkers. Let's weld them from the outside. Stay there.
yeah.
But that's why that movie stays with me a lot. Is that question? What do you do? Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. I do think it would be just and good if the world's wealthy decide to go in those bunkers that we buried them such that they would never be able to leave.
Yeah. Because, like, bunkers require ventilation
Yeah.
eventually. Just like, hey, look, that looks suspiciously like a ventilation tube. Why don't you go dump a big whole bunch of dirt on that, Bob?
Or just seal the front door, seal the door so it can't be opened from
Yeah.
either side, ever.
Well, weld them shut.
Yeah, have fun slowly starving to death in your bunker. Because fuck you guys.
No, I don't give a shit.
Uh,
So enemies will attack me first now, but that's okay. I can mostly defeat them. Whoa. That's weird. Just a little thing of water. Alright.
yeah.
Well, on that note of despair and crisis, I think this is a good place to stop.
All right. Any final words for the stream for posterity's sake? As I try to get my fucking mouse to work.
If if you're some rich asshole listening to the stream, then you should treat the whole world like they're your beloved family, and maybe the world won't end.
Also,
Which means if you don't, it's your fault if it does, and you
also,
should feel bad.
also, we personally hate you specifically.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, as long as you're going to continue to hasten the end of the world, I personally dislike you as a person.
Yes.
Right? Like if I knew you, I would not come to your birthday party.
I think that's been the parting message of a couple streams in a row. I think we're running on a theme.
Eventually, we get like it's late, so we get to the point where it's just like, you know what sucks? Everything, and then it's all the rich people's fault, and that's how we get there.
Yeah.
Because they're like even if you don't think capitalism is an immoral system, if you have the capability to make the world better on a massive scale and you don't, then the world then that I believe that's your fault.
It's like people
Right?
who litter even though they're standing like right next to a trash can. It's like
Yeah, exactly. Like our waste usage systems are vastly imperfect. But if you have the ability to try with minimal effort, like particularly with minimal like cost to your own standard of living, and you don't, then now it's your fault.
yeah.
That's what I believe.
All right. Let's end the stream
All
before we
right.
before we get even more spicy.